Oh no. What? What? You guys didn't see anything. I don't know what you guys thought you saw or what you didn't see, but yeah. So here we are. That's not how I wanted a nice strong entrance tonight, and I didn't get it. There was no intention of going live tonight, to be honest with you all. That was a last minute decision. We went live during the last Superb Owl show. I interrupted my Superb Owl party where we were just admiring fine looking owls. All of us upstairs, we had a bunch of owls on display. It was a Superb Owl party. And I figured, fuck the Superb Owls. I would rather, I want to compete against the Superb Owls. I have no idea whether we did pretty well last year. So we'll see. We'll see what happens this year. I don't think anybody really cares about who's playing, to be honest with you. I know my family did not. But I got to tell you, this is a show that we've had in the works for a while now. It's just a matter of lining things up. Stuff gets in the way. Babies. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's all sorts of stuff. We have Ballads here. Hello, Ballad. He says he watched a podcast that the girls did examining the Misfits legacy. They got too many facts wrong for me to finish listening. How about that? I have not listened to that. It would probably make my little nerd brain angry. Hey, Jeff, just curious if you watched the movie Mulva Zombie Ass Kicker. I have not, but I do know that's a Chris Seaver film. I know about Chris Seaver. But in any case, I am super, super excited for tonight's show because this guy has seen a lot. He's done a lot. He is a great, he's a very detail-oriented kind of guy. He's a man of facts, which I love because he'll sit there and meticulously pore over details. He sort of has witnessed, a cross slice of history, from the dark ages, as we call the dark times in the 80s, and saw it all the way through into the aughts. And we're going to be sort of taking a look at the various different eras. This is the first era. This is from 86 to 94. And my guest for this evening, he goes by many names. Sometimes he's the Humungus. Sometimes he's Frankenstein. Sometimes he's a Jedi Sith Lord guy. Sometimes he's dressed up like someone out of Harry Potter. Sometimes, he's Ivan Drago. Sometimes, he's been often cited as being a human action figure. He also had one of the most complete collections. So probably clarify or correct me if I get this wrong. He had one of the most complete Misfits, Samhain or Danzig, or just Misfits, I'm not sure, collections ever in an age before eBay. Imagine that. He witnessed many different things, and eventually he went from being a collector to being a tour manager. His name, well, they also call him the Tank, but we're going to call him Jim the Tank Dorsey. But for all intents and purposes, I like to think, when I think of him as Johnathan Grimm. I don't know why. That's just me. This is the guy, his record collection, he'll talk more about it. His record collection is the basis for, some of the information and data that Mark Kennedy would use to put Misfit Central together. That's right. Bet you guys didn't know that. And without further ado, let me bring him out of the digital green room. He's waiting anxiously behind the stage as I scratch my inner ear with a pen cap. They don't tell you that when you get older, you start to grow hair on the inside of your ear and it itches to fucking hell. Oh, does it suck? It sucks getting old. All right. Enough of that talk. I'd like to welcome my guest, Tank Grimm.
Oh boy,
Humungus.
I should probably just go now because I don't think I can live up to all that hype you just laid out there. Holy crap. They really call me all those things? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they call it every single one of those things. And one time, sometimes you're General Zod, right? Sometimes, I mean, just everything.
It's hard to do this backwards. There
Roy,
he is.
it is hard to do it backwards. It's hard to do it backwards. Yes.
General Zod's little puppy dog there, Non. Hence all the behind me. Okay.
I first met Tank. Well, I didn't first. Here's Rusty Murdergrams in the chat. Russell from TV Casualty is in the chat as well. What's up, Russell?
Oh my God! They actually let him in here.
He's known as Rusty Murdergram around these parts.
He and I go way back.
I bet.
Yep.
Freaking. We first met almost, I think, 12 years ago now, if you could believe that. That's weird to think.
Yeah.
About 12 years ago, I called a pool service, the All-American Pool Service. I said, hi.
Right.
I just cold called. I cold called up and I said, hey, I don't even know what I said. Maybe I said, is Johnathan Grimm there? And you're like, oh, that's me. My name's Jim. And
it was probably like, this is All American Pool Service. Jim, how can I help you? Hey, is Johnathan Grimm there? Yeah, that's me. My voice dropped 2 octaves when I heard you say that.
Is the All American Pool Service is no more now, or is it what?
Oh no, it's still going strong.
Oh, it is. Cool.
I basically sold out to Rocky 3 years ago now.
Wow.
And
so you're not.
The company's actually grown since then. Yeah,
that's phenomenal. I'm very glad to hear that, and very happy for Rocky.
They're going on 13 years, I think.
Wow. Rocky is known by many names. Rocky Schlock, aka Ken Kayaffa, the third Kayaffa brother. Wow, that's incredible though. That 13 years in business, that's phenomenal, truly.
Yeah. We started out as a 2-man, 1-van operation. Now I think it's 6 vans, and
that's amazing.
I don't know how many dozens of guys.
That's amazing.
It's grown quite a bit.
That's very cool.
Something to be proud of.
So there's a lot to cover, and you're gonna be back for multiple episodes. Like this is, guys.
You guys are stuck with me now. I'm sorry.
This is gonna be
It was his idea.
Yeah, this is going to be an ongoing thing, and Jim knows so much, so it'll be very interesting. We're going to be covering periods of time we don't normally cover. Jim, this is our 94th episode, and we mainly talk about the Misfits from 77 to 83, which is such a precious, finite thing to discuss.
Yeah.
And, we got a couple of, we do episodes where we discuss like Jerry only interviews from later on. But other than that, we really do kind of keep it to 77 to 83. So it's going to be very interesting to sort of dive into an area that I don't really, I know some stuff, but a lot of that is very casual knowledge compared to say what, I don't know. I'm just not a super specific, detailed, follower of the Misfits 95 history. So it'll be very interesting to hear things from your perspective, that sort of thing. But we need to start at the beginning, because before, as I said in my little intro, in the beginning, you were a collector before you ever got involved with the band. And when did you discover the Misfits originally?
My lifelong best buddy, Steve, who actually, believe it or not, he tried out as a drummer for the Misfits in late 94. Before Chud was officially on board. Anyway, he and I, growing up, we played G.I. Joe, and we played Star Wars, and we read comic books, and we got into skateboarding, and the skateboarding kind of got us into punk rock, and we're listening to the Minor Threat and Dead Kennedys and GBH. And so we would like swap tapes, and we'd stay the night at each other's houses a lot, and just skate. But I remember he brought over Legacy Brutality when it first came out. And I remember this is a weird situation. My parents were gone. He was downstairs futzing around on the family organ. and I was upstairs and playing whatever records he brought over, and I put on what I thought was side A, but put on Angel Fuck, and had my stereo blasting. And
So that was your first song was Angel Fuck.
Angel Fuck, and
Wow.
immediately it became my favorite song. Like, how often does that happen? You hear a song like just once, and like that's it. I'm hooked. That's my favorite song. You just replaced whatever Holiday in Cambodia might have been my favorite song at the time. Something about that album was magical. It was different. It was timeless. It was amazing, and the artwork, the Sean Wyatt drawing on the back, just like captivated me. It was so freaking cool. And that was it. Like, immediately out of nowhere, the Misfits were like, all of a sudden, this was my favorite band. Look at this skull. This is so cool. Like the iconography. But Glenn's voice, I mean, he truly was Orbison and Elvis and Orbison, like Morrison, like just all rolled up into one. And it was different. It was unlike anything else that the punks were doing. They weren't screaming and shouting, and it was just, God, it was just so fucking good. So yeah, that was day one. That was day one, ready to launch.
Let me interject here, as I will do, because Tank is an excellent talker, and he can just he could wax poetically. No, truly, and it's no, stop. You are like phenomenal. I could sit and listen to you for hours, which I will be doing. But I will interject from time to time. No, just because I details that I want you to elaborate on or talk about. So, first of all, I'm sure you've seen the other two drawings that Sean has done, right? Of Jerry and Doyle.
I've seen the Jerry one. I don't know if I've seen the Doyle one.
There's a Doyle one, and I got to tell you, like, I hadn't seen those until like last year, and I was like, whoa, I didn't know they did 3 of them. That's crazy.
Yeah, the Jerry one was like, I had a bad Xerox copy of it, like a little tiny thing from way back, like maybe Thrasher had it or something. But I met Sean Wyatt at a random show in, like, I don't know, the upper Midwest, or really, really small place. And I went out and bought an issue of Legacy that day just for him to sign it for me. But really great guy. And he never got paid for that artwork, which was typical. Mad Mark Brood didn't get paid either.
That is tragic. Both of those things are tragic.
Let me back up. Mad Mark Brood eventually got paid. Jerry made sure to pay him once, in the 90s, once there was something money in the kitty to do so. But originally, Mark Brood, even though he spent 3,000 hours drawing the Earth AD cover, never got paid for it.
That's insane.
In the beginning. Yeah.
That's insane. And that's all pen. That's all pen and ink work.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. What is going through? Here's the other thing too, is like, can you remember what your first impression was looking at that artwork on the back? Like, when you go back all those years and like think about, like, what do you remember what's going through your head of like, whoa, what is this? Like, what am I looking at?
I know exactly what was going through my head. I said, I want to look like that. I want to wear that skeleton outfit. I want to wear that spiked belt. I want my hair to look like that. Like, I want the shiny black boots like that. Like, I wanted it all. Immediately I was just hooked on every aspect of the music, the look, the sound, the name, the idea. It was all right. It's what I've been looking for. I finally found it. There it was.
Right. Yeah. So you connected with it. You connected with something that became a desire as a means to express yourself personally. Right.
Yeah. I was at that age. What would I have been? 14, 15? I'd have to do the math. Probably 15. Identity crisis years. Definitely, I have a natural father that I never really knew very well. So I had a stepdad that adopted my sister and I. And so there was all those different issues working out as my hormones changed in my teenage years, and the angst set in, and the just issues. I was looking for an identity, and there it was. That was exactly the identity I needed. That with a little bit of Road Warrior mixed in, and I was golden.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing that I love about Tank so much, is that him and I, we share an affinity for many things. One of which being you could have a conversation with Tank about like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or any of these fandoms, but he knows. He's like the only other guy I've met within my circle. He knows them all. He's enmeshed in that community, those communities. His knowledge of Mad Max is just like I was more impressed with that. I was more impressed with that, I think, even than the Misfits stuff, because I was just like, I was just so stoked. And when I went over to his place, this was like 12 years ago, and I tried on the outfit.
I still have pictures of that.
Yeah, I have a picture of it too. It was like the greatest. It was like the greatest day of my life to finally wear the leg brace. Everything was great.
Yeah,
but not to get. I don't want to get to stay on track. To stay on track here. So
good luck.
Good
luck.
Right. Yeah. Good luck. Good luck to me. So you find this expression, and then let's talk about. I guess the best way to discuss this would be to just from that teenage perspective, or connecting and relating to those songs and those lyrics, which, again, you can't see the band because you get into the band after the band is already broken up. All you can do is marvel over the archaeological treasures that have been left behind in the years. This is only a couple years after the band it doesn't exist anymore. And how do the lyrics, or do you find an affinity for, songs like I Turn Into a Martian, or just like anything like that? Like talk about that. Is there any like tell me about your connection to the stuff?
Yeah, I mean, as a little kid, I remember taking pictures of Dracula and Frankenstein out of a Life magazine and like making my own little like mini monster magazine, and just being like so enamored by that. I wouldn't say I was into like horror movies specifically, but I certainly thought they were cool. I mean, I certainly knew like all the Universal characters and some of the Hammer stuff and whatnot. So to discover this band that like not only sounded great, musically, lyrically, vocally, but to have that iconography and like something just like cool, like a lot of the punk stuff was like the political thing, or let's get fucked up, or you had the hardcore straight edge thing, and okay, whatever. But then this was like totally different, totally down a whole new avenue that nobody else was doing.
Why was that different? I mean, you kind of actually just said it, but like, could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Well, the songs were real to me. Like, God, how do I describe it? Like, I mean, you think about She, and it's not really a punk song. It's like a jazz song, but it's on a punk album, and it's done with an aggressive edge to it, and it's unlike anything else you've ever heard. And I mean, and the rest of Legacy and a lot of the Static Age stuff was that same way. But just that the whole horror thing, I don't know what other, if there were any other. I mean, the Damned kind of had it going on a little bit there, but it was just like, man, they had it on lockdown. Okay, 45 Grave, sure, but they did the horror thing without being like the what's the word I'm looking for? The delicate goth. They were more like we're we're like, we're horror,
noisy boys.
And here's Evilive, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, oh Jesus, oh my God, like they really drove it home, like nobody else ever before.
Elegantly stated. And then let me ask you this: what happens? So now it's like, and you're a guy that, I think this is like a reoccurring theme in your life moving forward, is that when you get into something that you're infatuated with, and I'm talking about you personally, I'm not talking about in a generalized statement. When you get into something that you're infatuated with on some level, or that like speaks to you, you want to know absolutely everything there is to know about it. So tell me, here's what I want to do, and I'll spin you up like a top and set you off. Tell me, and I'll interject when I can. Tell me about the quest of trying to find out that information. This is a reoccurring theme on this show, exploring and researching and collecting information in an age before the internet. That's like something that we do. And as well as I would love to hear once you got plugged into this world and new similar people. Was that like mythology? The ancient, like these tales of like, oh yeah, the guitarist, he bashed somebody's brains in 19, or oh yeah, didn't you know that they grave robbed once? Or oh, didn't you hear
Right.
about how they like got arrested in England and thrown in jail? Like just how that stuff developed. Zines. You talked about tape trading a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Tell me about the importance of tape trading. This is a question I also asked Greg Fasolino, the guy who ran the contest that you submitted to, that you entered, that Danzig contest. I had him on the show. And we were talking, I was asking him, we were talking about not just tapes, but like the importance of having like a demo if you were a band. If you could just, and lastly, one last thing, the skateboard culture, seeing the skull, Metallica wearing the shirts, blah 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 blah. Go.
Oh my God, go. Okay, here you go. Here's your punch list. Start checking them off. I don't even know where to begin.
Wherever, just you eat an elephant. You know how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. Just go. I'll direct.
With chopsticks.
Yeah, with chopsticks. I'll like readjust as need be. Go ahead. Just talk.
Well, so yeah, immediately Misfits become my favorite band. Angel Fuck is my favorite song. She is like a very close second. Thrasher, June '86, comes out with the interview and the discography. And my girlfriend at the time, Rafaela, has a copy of this thing. And I remember just flipping through, but oh, hey, cool, Danzig and Misfits and what is it? What? Wait, 45s? What? Mind fucking blown. All this stuff, it's like when Geraldo Rivera opened Al Capone's vault. Imagine doing that, and there was actually something inside it. Like, that's what I felt like. Holy shit, we just found the Holy Grail. Here it is. That immediately became like my life's quest, was to find these records, not because I wanted the records. I wanted to hear the songs that were on those records. I'm still a sophomore, junior in high school. And like you said, internet didn't exist, eBay didn't exist, tape trading, like who I had to make this shit up as I went along. Luckily, there was a local used record store, and there was a guy who worked there by the name of Lars, and he had some of the old singles, and he was willing to make copies of stuff. And he's, here's Children and Heat, and here's Rat Fink, and like, what? Oh my God! So just even if the song wasn't a good song, it didn't matter. Well, not like they didn't have any good songs, but to this day, Return of the Fly is one of my favorite Misfits songs, for the simple fact that was like the end all be all of like, you just can't get this anywhere else. This is, I'm giving you a piece of history right here on this little hissy little tape that's probably out of sync and out of time. So he made us some tapes, and then bootlegs started coming out. The bootleg records started coming out, so I was collecting those, and it'd be the same thing over and over again on a different cover, different color of vinyl, and you're just spending all kinds of money for it. But at the back of Spiral Scratch, some of the God, man, this is really taxing my memory here. Some of the record collecting magazines back in the day, there would be like little ads for like mom and pop record shops, and I had a letterhead that I used, and it was pretty cool actually. It was like a guy, like a scarecrow guy with a hood on his head and a couple of severed heads in his hand and a bloody axe, and he's standing next to this massive tombstone, and the tombstone was just blank, and that's what I wrote my letter in, was in the tombstone. And I'd always sign it Teenager from Mars, Johnny Favorite, because that was my pen name
Johnny
back then.
Favorite,
Johnny
right?
Favorite from Angel Heart, who was Jonathan Liebling, and Johnny Favorite. The line that what's her name says in the movie was Johnny Favorite was as close to pure evil as she wanted to get. And I was like, I'm going to be Johnny Favorite. That's badass.
Wow, I remember you telling me this years ago, and I completely forgot until you just said Johnny Favorite. It's just
Johnny Favorite
rang in my head.
And it's funny because when we switched over, now we'll get into when the whole Grimm thing came about. We switched over to the brothers Grimm, Johnathan and Francis. It was Bobby Steele who was like, "No, you should just be Johnny Favorite. I like that better." So it's like, whatever, Bobby. But we got some stories back there too. Anyway, so Teenager from Mars, Johnny Favorite. I started collecting records. I would send these letters out, and I remember each letter. It was a Xerox copy, so I would take red paint and paint in like where the blood was just like black on the Xerox copy, and wait for it to dry before I folded it up and sent the thing off.
Why?
Painted in red.
Why?
Oh,
yeah, why?
It's cool. What are you kidding? Dude.
No, I know why. I just wanted to, I get it. Like, but that's just what's so funny. It's like, it's just that, like, it's just the, it's the attention to the detail of like, I know this is a Xerox thing, and I'm just, it has a utilitarian purpose, but I'm still going to make sure that the Xerox red, the Xerox blood is colored in red.
Oh yeah.
I love it.
Yep. Yep. None of them had. The only thing that had real blood on it was my submission for the Danzig Win Your Skull contest. That was actually signed in my own blood. But that's a story for another time.
Right.
So yeah, and then a lot of times the envelopes would be spray painted black, and then I do like blood dripping out of it and Misfits artwork on it and stuff like that, and mail these things. So like mom and pop record stores get this thing in the mail. Like, what the fuck is that? But it got their attention, and so they would open it and they would address it, and anything that they had in stock, they would write me back. And if you can imagine how long this process took of going through the mail or maybe finally getting them on the phone, I remember I can't remember the guy's name, but somebody that worked at Pussmort Records was auctioning off some Misfits Samhain stuff, and it was a through the mail auction, and he had his list of what was available, and you sent him your highest bid on those items. And he collected bids from all around the country. And when the deadline rolled around, whoever had the highest bid on any of those items, that's what you won. There was no escalation bidding. There wasn't, it was just, I'd pay $300 for that. And you end up paying
eBay before eBay.
Yeah, that's how you did it, through the mail. And talk about taking a long ass time and needing to trust your sources. It was a little sketchy, but luckily I only got ripped off by one guy who sold me. It was a bootleg Who Killed Marilyn. It was like one of those close bootlegs, but those who knew, like, it was a little obvious. And what I thought, because I had nothing to reference it with, a real Beware for $300, and it wasn't the real Beware. It was the one that's really, really close. And for years I thought it was real until I met with Elizabeth Boris, and we held them side by side and saw the glare, right? Or the shine. There's my sleeve was a little bit bigger and actually had like a strip of black across the top where her artwork went all the way to the top edge. And hers had a little bit more gray tones to it, where mine were a little bit more washed out. And you really couldn't tell this unless you held them side by side and you knew what you were looking for. And then I was like, son of a bitch, I need to get a real Beware now. That sucks. I think that was the only time I got robbed by anybody. But let me ask you a question.
So in this time, it's like a letter, it's like the mail comes, you get out home from school, mail comes in, and you're just like, let me at that mail, like flipping through.
Yeah.
Yep.
I bought my Cough Cool that way. That was just after high school. I found my Cough Cool, paid $300 for it, which was a lot of money back then. I mean, I know what Cough Cools go for today, but let me tell you, it was a different world when I was, right out of high school working, whatever schlub job I had. $300 was all the money I had to my name.
Well, I mean, let me ask. Let's pause for a minute, because because we're talking about Cough Cool right now. I mean, you saw what happened this summer. I mean, or you must have heard. It must have echoed back to you at some point that you heard that how much the Cough Cool went for.
Actually,
right?
No, I'm kind of out of the loop on
okay.
And there's kind of a reason for it, because there's a part of me that thinks back and goes, well, I sold the Grimm Collection almost 20
Right.
years ago now. At the time, I got really good money for it
You
because
sure did.
I needed to buy a house.
You sure
If I
did.
if I sold that collection today,
Oh
I
my
would
God.
get so much more. But then where would I have lived for the last 20 years?
No, no, no. I
Like
listen.
what would I have done?
You expressed it so eloquently in our. I keep using the word eloquently. No, you
I'm
expressed
such an
it
elegant
so.
guy.
No,
It's
but it was just such a it was really a touching way that we had wrapped up our interview, and you had talked about how you had the memories of going on the quest, and the collection was together now, and you're starting a new chapter of your life, and this very positive, wonderful thing that you really enjoyed doing. Got you to a place where you could start the next level of your life. I mean, it was like absolute. Like, if you have to part with a collection, that's the way it should always be. It shouldn't be because and it happens to people all the time. It shouldn't
yeah.
be because you're like, fuck, I need to pay, I'm
Mhm,
missing a monthly payment on my car. It should be
mhm,
because you have to buy a house because you're having a family. Like, that
mhm.
is I think that's beautiful, man.
You know who really helped me along the way with that whole thought process at the time was Steve Zing. Um, we were hanging out at one of the chiller theaters back in late 90s, doing the photo shoot stuff and whatever. Michael was around at the time. So it was still pretty early on. But I was talking to him, about this life change that was coming. And at the time, the collection wasn't even on display anymore. It was all boxed up in my mother's basement because I didn't have a place to show it off. So it was kind of sad. It wasn't getting the majesty that it deserved. And Steve was like, that's the collection is just the physical stuff. You will always have the memories, and you're trading one love for another. I'm like, yeah, that really, like, you're right, Steve. You're right. I can do this, and I never looked back. It was interesting how that whole thing kind of worked out. That there was a deal on the table and it fell through, and then I'm like, I'm all ready to close on my house, and like, holy crap, what do I do now? And then some guy came out of nowhere and was like, I'll buy this, this, and this for this much, and I was like, are you fucking kidding? And then Yame came in and bought the rest of the stuff. It was just it made my freaking head spin, but all the pieces just they fell in place at the last minute. It was amazing. Uh,
Can you repeat that? Because I totally froze
oh,
and didn't
dude,
hear. I thought you froze. And I was going, damn, he froze. I'm the one that it's
maybe.
always me who froze. Where I missed right after Steve said that thing, and you went,
Yeah.
what were you just saying?
Yeah, well, he said you're trading one love for another,
Right.
and that's exactly that's what did it. It was so true, and it was amazing how everything worked out. Where there was one deal on the table with I believe it was Karsten Moss
The
in.
Italian guy, right?
No, this was a German fellow, Karsten. I think he's German.
Okay.
Um, there was a deal on the table. Things somehow got changed, and that kind of fell through. And then I'm like, oh crap! I'm supposed to close on my house in like a month, and I don't have the money coming in now. And then a private collector from I'm going to say like the Seattle area, and I can't remember his name, and he wouldn't want me to say his name anyway because he
Right.
wanted to stay totally off the radar, and I respected that. Um,
Totally.
he said, I will buy these key pieces and I will give you this much money. And it was a lot more than I expected. The Teenagers from Mars that I had,
Yeah.
that piece alone went for $10,000.
Yeah.
20 years ago. And once that was set in place, there's like a handful of other collectors that were like, well, I will take these for this much. I'll take those for that much. And I didn't want to break the collection up, but when you had that much now sitting on like the future is now sitting on the table. What do? I roll with it. I got to make this happen.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, Jaume in Spain, in Basque country, up in the northern part of Spain,
Yeah.
he's the one that got most of it. But sadly, by the time he got to it, some of the really choice pieces had been pulled out of it. But again, with the price tags that were on, and these were not prices I set; these were offers that came in, and I was like, how can I say no? Oh my! And I was so thankful to everybody who participated.
Oh yeah.
You just put a roof over my family's head, and I'm sitting in that house to this day. Here I am,
Right.
downstairs. So yeah, you've been here,
I've been to your house several times. So I know we did just kind of jump ahead a little bit, but it was for a good reason. And okay, so so what do you think that cough cool went for? That the most recent one?
Oh, I don't know. What are they, like $5,000? 10 grand, 50 grand? What?
It went for, I believe it went for somewhere between, I think it was $22,000. $22,000, not $2,200, $22,000. A bullet went for something, I think, don't quote me on this, I don't remember the exact number. It was over 10,000 for a bullet.
Jeff Frumess just told me. Sorry.
No, wait. And ready for this? The original Wolf's Blood artwork. How much do you think that went for?
Oh man, I remember when that originally popped up on the scene from the artist. This is going way back. Early Misfits Central stuff. Chat rooms, and the artist was in like Alaska or something, and she's like, "Oh yeah, Carol was like, I have that artwork," and somebody was like, "Hey, can I have it?" And they were like, "Sure, I'll send it to you." I'm like,
"Send it to you?
What? What did the wow? I
all right. This is gonna melt your mind, though.
This is gonna hurt.
Okay. This is gonna hurt. What do you think it went for just recently?
50 grand.
It went for something like $34,000 or $35,000. The artwork. Wow. So yeah, like again, you did what you had to do at the time, but with the and we're gonna go back and talk about the Grimm collection and what here Tank is telling us about his collection. He's talking about how it needed to be displayed for enjoyment. We're not talking about records on a shelf. We're talking about like displayed. This was like these were treasures that were put out. Oh, yeah. But I think your collection today would probably fetch 6 figures easily. Yeah. If you together, I don't know, but like, you just think about just the acetate stuff alone, which is so priceless. I bet you that acetate stuff in the market, which is probably like a bubble and probably, obviously it's inflated, but you would imagine you probably could, I bet you alone, just one of those acetates would go for 50.
Yeah.
Something like that, I once called you up and I told this story on the air. I remember Harley Flanagan was trying to sell his bass from Jerry, and I called you up about like 10 years ago. I was like, "Hey, Tank." I was trying to get him to do an interview with me, and I was trying to he's like, anybody who knows about this stuff? I was like, just trying to do any which favor for him to get him to sit down. And so I called you up. I was like, Tank, what do you think one of Jerry's basses go for? And I was like, it's the bass that was on that he recorded Walk Among Us with, and it was just given to Harley. And you're like, you did this over the phone. It was the funniest thing ever. You're like, well, considering that it's a Rickenbacker bass, that's number 1 from the 70s. 2, it's been specially modified and customized and performed live by the artist. 3, it was used to record the seminal record Walk Among Us, and I think that those were the things that you listed off, and you said it's priceless. but and then I think the number you threw out was 10 grand, which I think made sense. It totally made sense. 10 grand made sense. I think he got 5 for it, but it was just funny how you itemized all of the reasons why it's so special, and then you're like, it's priceless. Like you can't put a price on it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was just funny.
I remember the guitar that Doyle used in at the show to hit the kid in the head with. Lou Vomero had it for sale, hanging up in his shop, Music Man, I think in Rutherford, New Jersey. I think that's where that shop was. Again, 25 years ago ish, and he was asking $500 for it, and I bought some bootlegs instead. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. Elizabeth Boris ended up with that, so I'm pretty sure she still got it. But there you go. You froze again. You're like,
no, I didn't froze. My mouth was just hanging open on the
floor. Yeah, $500 for that, legendary, probably the most legendary guitar in punk rock history.
Besides, well, here's the thing. Okay, let's play this game for a second because this is fun. First of all, I'm going to make a really funny, nerdy joke that I know you're going to love. That guitar is like Narsil. That guitar is like Narsil from Lord of the Rings. I knew you would like that.
Yeah.
It's Narsil, dude.
Yep, and the shards everywhere. Yeah,
the shards of Narsil, man. That's what that guitar is. Yep. No, but I would say if we had to say what's the most legendary guitar in all of punk rock, maybe I would say, honestly, I would say the Johnny Ramones guitar that he played from which just sold for almost $1 million, is from Daniel Ray. Ray, who you know or had crossed paths with several times. He had that guitar and he auctioned it off. It was like for $975,000. And it was featured on 15 Ramones albums. It still had the same strings in it and the same picks from the final Ramones show. He never took the strings off. Mm-hmm. So it had the strings from the final show, and it was one of two of Johnny, or one of three of Johnny Ramone's guitars. I would say that would be the most famous, but I would say that Doyle's guitar that was used to crack the kid in the head with, that this story that's so like legendary. I mean, this is like punk rock mythology 101 would easily go for, I don't even know. Like, it would just be, you couldn't put a price on it. It would just be, and for $500, I can't believe that Elizabeth had that. That's
she made the move. Yeah, she did the right thing. I think part of why I didn't jump on the guitar, and this may sound really stupid, I was always very particular about what I got autographed. Like the Teenagers from Mars acetate was just a plain white sleeve. Perfect for getting the 4 band members to sign.
I want to hear. Wait! Don't talk about that story yet. I want you to tell that story properly and full, because that's the best the fucking story in the world. Yes. But yes, okay. Sorry, continue.
But like my regular records, like I didn't want to cover up the artwork or mess up the artwork. I didn't want them signed. I certainly didn't want them signed like to me, like, hey, John, thanks for being a fan. So this guitar was signed by Doyle. Great, I totally get that. Signed by Jerry. Okay, yeah, I kind of get that too. He's in the band. And signed by Bobby. What? Wait, what?
That doesn't make any sense.
Why did Bobby sign? I mean, because Lou was just like, hey, you sign it, and you sign it, and you whoever walks in the door, hey, come over here, sign it. So it kind of, I was like, what? I mean, of course, looking back, I could have just taken some acetone and been, taking it right off. But
probably
it was weird for some stupid reason. So instead of buying that, I bought a bunch of bootlegs because I was still collecting them at the time. But I did at least get the drum strap that used to go around Robo's toms. That was like a leather
with spikes
strap with massive spikes on it.
Sal B had one of those too.
Yeah.
Listen, here's the thing, and nothing against Bobby. We love Bobby here.
Right.
But yes, I think that by signing, when you sign something that you're not personally connected to the thing, like a great example, I love Dez. I have mucho respect for Dez. I want to just preemptively say that. Uncle Dez. But, some fan came up to Dez and was like, Dez, sign my horror business. And he did. And it's just kind of like, it was like, and again, it's not like, what is Dez going to do? Like, the guy wants what he wants. He wants the autograph, and Dez is not going to be a dick, and he's going to oblige because he's a nice guy. However, if you're a collector looking at this piece and going, wait, why is Dez on this horror business? It devalues, I think, and I'm not talking about Dez, I'm talking about in general.
In general,
non-specific autograph will devalue a piece. So I could understand why you would be turned off to that. I did not know that the shards, what was the state of it? Was it like, how was it broken? Do you remember?
The corner, like where you would plug in, was like smashed. Yeah.
So that's where he got hit.
I saw DRI at the old 930 Club in DC this must have been 88. And I remember hanging out with the singer before the show, I believe, downstairs, and we were just shooting the shit, and we got to talk about the Misfits because I was such a big fan. And he claimed, I'm hoping this is a true story, that he met the kid who got hit in the head, and that he had a scar that like ran across the top of his head, and that he wore it like a badge of honor. He's like, yeah, that's what Doyle hit me. Like,
so
we could show it off.
I have done as much deep diving about this as one would do. I've spoken to someone. I've personally spoken with a firsthand eyewitness account, as I'm sure you have. I mean, wow, it was in your house. I heard from Ken, told me his recollections of the incident. So I got to hear from that perspective. I read perspectives of people that were there when it happened, and I've heard just all these different things. Some people say that it was a 14-year-old kid who wasn't even the right kid. It was just some kid who was just standing in the wrong place at the wrong time. Right. I've heard other instances where the kid was, starting crap, or was, provoking, which led to it. There was one recollection of the kid, and I feel like this was more of a dramatic, an elaboration where the kid, a year later, pulled a long splinter of guitar out of his scalp.
A year later,
doesn't that sound like some 80s folklore, like pre-internet, like kids smoking behind the school, talking about their favorite band, and one of them goes, "You know what I heard? I heard that the kid pulled out like that kind of, like a tall tale."
It was like this long.
Right. And then other, like, oh, there was so much blood. There was a giant pool of blood, and everybody froze, and there was quiet over the crowd. Like all these different, all these different sort of things. But it's just so fascinating how, like, something that really happened balloons into a myth, into a legend, like actual legend. And it's just, I don't know. I think it's one of the reasons why we love this band so much, because it's just full of, we love all the stuff. We just talked about Lord of the Rings, talk about Star Wars, talk about Mad Max. We love these stories. This is a band that's steeped in lore, right? Yep. So when you meet Jerry Only, you're not just, it's not like, hey, what's up? Hey, I'm Jerry, for kids.
Yep.
It's more like you're meeting like this, this like Conan character who, is a real life, guy. With the fuck, you know what I mean? And Jerry's always in his garb. So it's like, you're not meeting Gerald Caiafa. You're meeting Jerry Only when you see Jerry Only. So it's like, I feel like there's that element to it as well.
There's a mystique that, I think if I had seen the band back in the day, or if they were still around when I got into them, it wouldn't have, the mystery would have been gone.
Right.
The aura, the legend. It was just, I have no idea what I'm trying to say here, but I remember at the House of Blues in LA, and Jerry and I meeting Rob Zombie backstage and being like, "Oh, hey, Rob, cool. Nice to meet you." And then we meet Lux Interior and Poison Ivy from the Cramps. And even though, Rob Zombie's like, he's Rob Zombie, he's a big shot, big time. And in the Cramps, in their scene were, legends. But that's the thing. They were legends. So when we met them, both Jerry and I were like, whoa, that's Lux and Ivy. Like, holy shit. It was a different mentality because I guess they were like so far back and so kind of niche and far, you only heard the stories of them. They weren't in your face. They weren't in the news. They weren't in the headlines. They weren't here and there. No, it's a totally different animal. And it has this whole different love when it's something like that. It's like my dad always said, the records that are going to become valuable are not the ones that were big hits that sold a lot when they came out. It's the obscure shit that nobody bought when it was available, and then later that person went on and did something great, and now you're looking back at stuff that most of them ended up in the trash. And that's exactly what the Misfits did. So
that's crazy. So does Lux Interior and Poison Ivy, are the Misfits even on their radar? Are they like aware? Because they're record collectors. They must be aware of Misfits. Like they have these like legendary record collections. So do they have like Misfits vinyl? Do they have Cough Cool in their collection?
Probably. I wish I knew. I mean, we only met them. They were hanging out backstage at one of our shows, and we're like,
right.
And it was brief. I didn't get to be like, hey, what's your number? We'll chat.
Right.
That would have been weird. But I would imagine they probably did. I mean, they were in the scene back then, so it was probably readily available. Well, not readily, but they could have gotten it without paying collector's prices like the rest of us had to.
They were, yeah. I mean, they started off in New York, and yeah. I mean, they would have been contemporaries of the Misfits
Yeah.
because the Misfits are a New York band, which is something I
Mhm.
get into a lot of. Even with Steve Zing, go on and on about how the Misfits are a New Jersey band,
New
Robbie
Jersey band.
Bloodshed, all these guys.
Right.
And I asked Mr. Jim. I said, Mr. Jim, are the Misfits a New York band or the Misfits a New Jersey band? And Mr. Jim said the Misfits were a New York band. And so I said, there you go.
Okay.
That
The man has spoken.
I would say
If his name
so.
is Jim, he's got to be right. I mean,
I
bottom line.
think
Bottom line.
exactly. I think so. And when I asked Franche Coma the same thing, I spoke to him on the phone very recently. I asked him the same thing, and Frank said the same thing. He said we were absolutely a New York band, even though we were from New Jersey. We were a New York band. I said I feel the same way.
Well, how many shows did they play in New Jersey as opposed to
They
playing
played. They
You know,
played shows and they
you play
played shows.
you play Eddie's Lounge, you play like how
Right.
many venues are you going to hit?
Right.
This side of the water. So
right.
Yeah,
What's up, Dagger Love?
Dagger Love, yo.
Dagger Love is in the house. Dagger Love is Dagger Love lives in Lodi, actually, I think, or he lives somewhere. Not to reveal the secret locations of Dagger Love.
Secret location, yeah.
But
I drove by 41 MacArthur.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I was out. In my current career, I do a lot of swimming pool stuff, and I was out measuring a swimming pool for one of our dealers in Lodi, a house in Lodi, and I was like, let me just pop around the corner here, and just take a look at the old homestead, and it looked very different from what I remembered, having last been there in '94, probably.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. Well, the hearse wasn't in the back anymore. That's for sure.
Right.
It's been there for a long time. But yeah, it was the middle of like a little bit of remodeling, and I was just that as a younger man, like that would have been like the move to make would have been to buy that house and just go, I live in the old Danzig.
I mean that basement. Was like
if it could talk.
If that basement could talk, exactly. I mean that was the basement, and yeah, I was there not too long ago as well, and I did pass by. I was there. There was a VFW show, and I definitely passed by there, and I went to Grove Street as well.
You got to go by Grove Street.
Got to go by Grove Street. Yep. So all right. So we were talking about Cough Cool. Now we're gonna lasso all the way back. You're on your massive quest to sort of collect all your stuff, and then at the same time, Danzig is doing well. There's Samhain is happening. Well, let me ask you this: where are you? Like, are you a Samhain fan at that time? Yeah. Are you okay? You're into Samhain. You saw Samhain?
No, no. Early Danzig, but yeah, because Legacy came out 85 or 86?
85.
85, and Samhain was breaking up 86-ish. Transform
right. Gotcha.
It's but no, Sam, I definitely after Misfits, and my buddy Steve was like, "Oh, hey, check this out. Here's Initium," and it was just a whole nother can of worms just got opened on I'm like, holy shit! It just keeps getting better. So when you mentioned before in the intro, you didn't know for sure if I was just a Misfits collector, if I was Samhain and Danzig too. I mean, clearly the Misfits was the massive
number one. Yeah,
I had all the Samhain colored vinyls and the Danzig odd releases and whatnot. So yeah, all that stuff was. I sold the Misfits collection to buy the house. I sold the Samhain, Danzig, and Undead stuff to fix it up because it was
wow.
Yeah,
and that's the other thing. That's the other thing I wanted to add. I was going to start with this, and then I went for Samhain instead. And then here's the thing that's interesting more than anything else. Yes, Glenn is playing a couple of Misfit songs in the Samhain set, but the only keeper of the flame, so to speak, is a Mr. Bobby Steele, who is for the entire time that between when Jerry and Doyle get the name back and start doing the old songs again, and 83, you have Bobby Steele for what is it, like 11 years?
Yeah,
is the old for if you are a diehard Misfits fan, if you get into the Misfits in the year like 1987, and you want to go see Bullet or Ratfink live, you got to go find Bobby Steele, right?
Yep,
because Glenn's not doing it.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, he's going to do some stuff. He's going to do London Dungeon and Danzig. He's going to do London Dungeon. He does All Hell. You know what's funny? Here's a hot take for you. I was listening to the first Danzig show. We did a whole special on the first Danzig show, and the first Danzig show and set list, in a weird backwards way, is almost actually really like the last Samhain show. Oh, that sounds weird. But when you look at the set list that they played, like they played Black Dream at the first Danzig show. Like there was just such a weird set list, and there's so much Samhain material that it's almost like, I was talking about this with the guy from Voice of Doom. We were kind of like thinking like, wow, in a weird kind of way, this is almost like, this almost could be like the actual final Samhain show, and not the new music seminar, which is actually the final Samhain show of the original band. But it's just kind of interesting. But my point being, Bobby Steele, you got to go find Bobby Steele if you want to hear a couple Misfits tunes. Maybe I Turned Into a Martian, maybe Bullet, stuff like that.
I remember buying the 2 7-inchers that were available back in the late 80s, Nine Toes Later, and what the hell was the other one? Wow, whatever it was.
And sorry, say it again.
Nine Toes Later. What were the 2 Undead?
Nine Toes Later, Never Say Die.
Never Say Die. Thank you. No, Never Say Die was the album. There was another 7-inch. And I remember the Never Say Die album because when I went to Real Platinum Studios, it's some guy's basement. Sounds fancy calling it studios, which was the first time I met George Germain, actually. There was a Never Say Die album sleeve on the wall, and somebody put a T after die, and it was Never Say Die.
That's great.
But anyway, I got those 2 records, and I remember putting them on my record player and being blown away, because it was exactly like if I were to start a band at that time in my life and write music, and yo, Dan, what's up, buddy? That is what I would have wanted us to sound like. That music, like, to a T.
Yeah.
It had that it was just very like not aggressive, but like energetic, and it really grabbed me when I first heard it.
Tell me about the studio, Real Platinum. Tell me, you said it's in the bottom of the house. What do you remember? Like walk me through that place and what it's like in details, and anything.
This would have been November 94, maybe.
Okay.
Either late 94 or early 95, but I think late 94. It was when Jerry was working on releasing the Christmas show, Max's Kansas City. And they were recording the guitar, the bass, the drum, like re-recording it and laying it over the top. And they were going to send it to Glenn to redo the vocals on it. And I'm like, why don't you just release the real show? That's what we want to hear. We don't want to hear it, redubbed. But I'm pretty sure Bobby Aleka's basement is what Real Platinum Studios was.
Yeah.
And so a little narrow, a little crowded. Bob was there. His assistant was there. I can't remember his name, but a really nice guy who amazed me with his tales of how much weight he had lost just by cutting out red meat and drinking a massive glass of water every morning when he woke up. Anyway, but so it was one thing to be in Real Platinum Studios and be like, holy crap, this is like history happened here. But who's sitting at the engineer's table? Fucking George Germain. Oh my God, our fearless leader is right there. And he was, an old kind of heavy set guy, didn't get around real well, had his cane with him. But oh my, wow, that's like meeting royalty. Like, these are some deep cuts. Like, it was, meeting George Germain the day I met Paulie B, I'm like, fucking hey, you're Paulie B. Oh my, what? Mind blown. Jesus Christ. George was talking about having the original tapes had deteriorated so much that they had to bake them in the oven. And like George knew all that kind of weird stuff. But yeah, they weren't recording anything. They were just like working on the engineering of it. So like not a whole lot of like fascinating stuff was happening, but it was just being in Real Platinum Studios with George Germain and Jerry and Doyle. I'm like, I died and gone to heaven. This is nuts. This is totally
nuts. Now explain. We've talked about George on the show. When we had Steve Zing on the show, we talked about George briefly. But if you could explain for anybody who might be joining us for the first time or in general, who is George Germain, and why is he royalty, and why would he be there for that particular recording in particular, and why just if you could just explain that.
Yeah. Well, from what I know, and hopefully, a good chunk of this is true, but it's all from what I've heard, but from reliable sources. So George was just an eccentric, local, in Lodi, older fellow. He knew a lot about a lot of things. Like he was kind of like me. Like if he found interest in, say, drag racing, he would go out and learn everything he could about drag racing, and damned if he didn't have a dragster built in his backyard. And I'm not kidding. He had a dragster in his backyard. Originally, he was or at least at one time, he was a color engineer for DuPont. And I just quoted him recently, like Friday, on the phone with one of my dealers, explaining how George explained to Rocky, and then Rocky explained to me, why do black cars always look dirty when a white car that is just as dirty will look clean? How does that the math, it doesn't add up. Actually, it does. And George explained why. And this was the magic of George Germain. So when you look at a white car, so much light is reflecting back to you that your pupils get really small. And now you can't see the detail of all the dirt that's on that car. When you look at a black car, it's absorbing all that light and getting hot because of it. So your pupils get larger, and now you can see the detail. That's the only reason two cars that are the same amount of schmutz on them, one will look clean and one will look dirty. So this is the kind of stuff that George knew. It's just random, like, well, that's an interesting fact. He had so many great ideas about how to make guitars, electric guitars, better, that he actually called Les Paul, and who was from New Jersey, and he told him, he's like, these are my ideas, and Les Paul had the audacity to hang up on him. So George, this was not going to fly in Germain's world. So George called him up, and Les Paul answered the phone. Like, I guess they didn't have caller ID back then. And George says to him, and the way George spoke, nobody, and I mean nobody, hangs up on George Germain. And so what happened? Les Paul listened to what he had to say. Whether he did anything about it or not, I don't know. But that was just George's shtick. So long story short, so George knew about recording. George knew about engineering and mixing and studio stuff. So George was quite often, I would imagine, the guy that was at the soundboard for these early shows, actually running recording. So he was the one that recorded the Max's Kansas City. He had the tape probably sitting in a filing cabinet, and then decades later, like, hey, let's put this out. I could be wrong on this. You might know better. He might have been a financial backer for some of the early Plan 9 stuff. I'm not entirely sure if he was in a position to do something like that or not, but I think he might have had something to do with Glenn's Hookah, Maryland Spook City project. And the reason I'm pretty sure that's true is one of the times I went to George's house to do some random stuff. He had a cement fake fireplace that he was trying to get rid of. And so he dragged it out front and smashed it with sledgehammer so the trashmen would come and take the thing away. The thing weighed it was like a car. And then we had to move his refrigerator downstairs into the basement, but it wouldn't fit through the door. So we had to take the refrigerator door off, and it was all this stuff. But it was so worth it because I don't know I think it was Jerry brought me over to George's filing cabinet, and he opens up the bottom drawer. He's like, hey, Tank, check this out. Holy shit. Okay. That amazement and that wonder that I felt the day that I saw that discography in Thrasher, that was nothing compared to what I'm getting chills, right? I swear to God, I'm getting chills right now. when Jerry opened up that bottom drawer of the filing cabinet, and he starts pulling out acetates like I've never even fucking heard of. 12-inch Night of the Living Dead acetate. Wait, what? What? Like all kinds of like Who Care Maryland test pressings and acetates and things. I'm like, that's what made me think. I really think George was involved pretty steeply in that project. So there was another Teenagers from Mars acetate. The Teenagers from Mars acetate I had was one of the 5. It was unlike the other 4 in that it had a small center hole, and it had a small center hole and then an offset center hole, and then it was Teenagers on both sides. It didn't have static age on the flip side. So one of the standard Teenagers from Mars acetates. Like, has anybody else ever seen 2 Teenagers from Mars? Like, yeah, I'm the guy. There was another one sitting in the, like, this drawer was just. I got nothing. I don't know what to say.
All right, I'm going to interject here. I'm going to interject for a couple of things. First of all, I love hearing that story. It's the greatest story ever. And if I'm not mistaken, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, at some point, Jerry just goes, "Here, take one," or something, right?
Close. In the early days, 94, 95, I was coming up. I came up in November 94 for my first audition. I was even taking singing lessons because clearly I have a deep voice. And I needed to try and hit some more of that tenor stuff. I bought, after my first tryout, I bought a PA to bring to them because you go in that little room that they would rehearse in, and Doyle's got all his amps cranked up to 11. Jerry's got his shit cranked up to 21. Chud's like hitting like a maniac. You can't hear yourself at all. So I'm singing and I have no idea if I'm in key or not because I can't hear myself, not one note. So I'm bringing equipment up. I'm helping them with doing chiller theater. I'm painting models for them. I'm redoing. Jerry wanted to mass produce his original like Sid Vicious based boots, the boots he wears on the cover of Walk Among Us, and he wore them for first few years on tour again. So like all these projects are going on, and I'm like heavily involved, paying my own money to make things happen. But I think the thing that really resonated with Jerry was when I was coming up, I would stay at Jerry's house, and Jerry C and I became really good buddies. He was younger than I was, but I was coming to work with the Misfits, but here I am like playing Mortal Kombat with him, and like we're hanging out, we're being buddies. So it was really cool. I would pull up in the driveway, and I could hear him yelling inside, "He's here, he's here!" And like to come running down the stairs. I'm like, oh, that's freaking awesome. And now he's like Jerry Other, like, oh wow, who saw that come? But the court settlement was like still kind of ongoing, and like things hadn't progressed yet, and things were a bit rough around the edges. I remember staying at Jerry's house and noting that like the roof leaked. The dishwasher didn't work. They'd have to add pitchers of water like to keep it going. The refrigerator door handle had broken, so they had one like made out of duct tape. And I was like, all right, I see a family here that's like, struggling. They're getting by, but they're not like this. It's a little rough around the edges right now. And so and here I was, and they're putting me up, and they're treating me like a king, and I'm freaking nobody. I had a restaurant management job, and I was doing okay. I didn't have much overhead at that age, so I left him when I left one morning. I left a check just to be like, hey, don't think I come up here and just I'm gonna hang out and just you're gonna pay for all this stuff for me. I want to make sure I'm covered, and he never cashed the check, and I kind of knew he wouldn't, but I wanted to put that out there, and I think that was part of like him saying, hey, you're a good dude, so where that's getting us to is the story of a package showed up on my doorstep one day in the early days, the mid 90s, and there was some stuff in there. Jerry wanted me to dye like some lifting belts that we were going to put spikes on, and I don't think they ever got used. And that brings up a whole other hilarious side story for another time over a beer or something. about the fire department showing up at my house when I'm staining leather. But in that box was a very nice letter from Jerry, basically, thanking me for all the help that I was doing and the commitment I had to him in the cause, and there was like some quotes and things on there, but with it was a Teenagers from Mars acetate. Oh my God! This is the one. This is the crown jewel of anybody's collection, like a Teenagers from Mars acetate. Holy wow! And he pointed out that this one was unlike the other four in that it had teenagers on both sides in the small center hole. I'm like, what do you say to that?
One of a kind record.
Yeah. Here you go. Thank you. And you're thanking me. What? Yeah, I was so humbled by that. I mean, and to this day, I still am.
Now, I want to just quickly correct something, because I had previously, we had done an interview in the past, and I didn't remember the exact details. And I think I sandwiched two stories together in which I said something along the lines of, I think that you had opened up a filing cabinet and that he had just handed you one or something. And
he handed it to me, but not for me to take home.
Right. Maybe point being for the sake of correcting and clarifying, that is the story, and that I had the story wrong for whoever listened to that previous episode.
Way to go, Jeff.
Which, well, I put a disclaimer. I said, this is not my story to tell, and this is how I remember being told. But I just figure, for the sake of being on the record, that is the actual story, not what I got. I don't always know the answers to these things, and thank you for clarifying that. It's a beautiful story. And now there is one tragedy to this story, and Chank's thinking, why is he saying there's tragedy in the story? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because the year was, I don't know what was the year? It was 94.
Yeah, 94. It might have been into 95 at this point.
Right. The year was 1995. Now, if it was the year 2008 or 2009 or 2010 or 2011, you would have had a turntable that could go from turntable to MP3, and you could have digitized it, and we could have heard this uniquely sounding thing, which is not going to sound like anything else, that contains a version of that song that is, because, as you know, with that, we've talked about this ad nauseum, acetates contain different versions, as you said. Now, here's what really blows my mind. Night of the Living Dead is on a 12-inch acetate, despite being a 7-inch record. Why do you think that is, in your best educated guess?
With the lack of education I have, I really got nothing on that one. I like, to this day, what is that doing? Was that a planned project that didn't happen? Why would you do that?
Here's my educated guess, and this is just speculation, as always. We speculate here constantly. My guess, sorry,
you'll go blind doing that.
Oh, well, that's why I wear the glasses. So, my guess is that they were going to do a 12-inch single. And for either money, resources, for whatever reason, it was decided that it should be a 7-inch. And I'm going to take this one step further, and this is purely fan fiction. But I would imagine Glenn has said, I think Glenn or Jerry, somebody has always said, I think you're aware of this too, the idea that Night of the Living Dead was recorded really badly, or it was mixed or mastered badly. It doesn't sound very good, right? Like, are we on the same page about that?
It has a unique sound,
Yeah, it's not, I mean, and that partially has to do with the fact that Jerry had really, really, really big amps, and Bobby had really, really, really small amps, and that there was no isolation between them, or there wasn't much of it, and that there's a lot of bleed through, which leads to a very uniquely sounding record, but B also is like a whole nother level of live recording that you really can't fix with any kind of mixing. So it's a mess. So now, again, I'm saying pure speculation. Perhaps for, when you put a record on, as a 12-inch, you get more fidelity because there's more grooves, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe
my understanding. Yeah.
Right. Maybe it just sounded, maybe it wasn't worth the money.
Right.
To put it as a 12-inch.
Quality of the recording. Yeah.
Because of the quality of the recording. So they said, because, that sounds like something that Glenn or Jerry might, think like, let's sort of, what's it called? We'll just sort of hack this ourselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll hack it in a way that, okay, so the 12-inch single is now going to just be pressed on a 7-inch, which is cheaper, and the quality of recording, we're not going to go back in the studio. We can't really do anything with it. Let's just do that. That's my guess.
My guess was along the same lines, pretty much.
Okay. All right.
Maybe so I didn't have all those details in place, but I was like, they probably originally were going to do it as a 12-inch.
Yeah, that's okay. So that's my educated guess. Yeah. And
so all those acetates and test pressings, like I said, a lot of Who Killed Marilyn stuff was in there, including a marble vinyl Marilyn, which I didn't have one at the time, or no, I did. My timelines are so I'm getting old. But if I remember correctly, after George passed, his widow needed help with some financial assistance, and Steve Zing stepped in, and all those things got auctioned off. And I remember looking like, okay, I'd love to get one of these things. I mean, I've held them. I'd love to have one in my collection, and they all ended up going for more than I could afford at the time, and which was a good thing. I mean, it really went to a good cause.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
I'm going to take this very quick moment. We are going to go to a very quick sponsor break real quick.
Good.
If you go ahead, get yourself rejuvenated for a second. If you are a fan,
is this the official Superb Owl halftime show?
This is the half
nipples here? What's going on?
This is the Superb. Thank you for bringing. Wow, great way to bring that back. Right? This is the Superb Owl halftime half hour show. Yeah. We're talking about stickers here. If you need stickers, you should get your stickers from riotstickers.com. As you can see, the Frumess channel is powered by riotstickers.com. These are vinyl stickers. And as you can see, here is a sticker that came from riotstickers.com. You get 3-inch by 3-inch stickers. So what is a 3-inch by 3-inch real estate? It looks kind of something like this. Something along the lines of this. And this is, there's a lot of good real estate right here for your sticker, for your image. Image is everything, as they say, right? So you want to have something. And Tank, can you tell me whose handwriting you think that might be?
Mine. No. Wait, no, mine's not that nice. Is that? Wait a minute. That's not.
You're going to recognize it. I know you are.
Is that Jerry's?
That's Glenn Danzig's handwriting.
I'm looking at the S's, thinking that looks like Walk Among Us. That's Glenn.
No, that's horror business.
Okay.
That's the E. That's the ESS at the end of horror business.
If I knew, and then I would have studied.
No. But I know. I think you're out of touch with the thing. No, I took Glenn's letters and I made Frumess, and that's what I did for my vinyl stickers. I got to tell you, I'm really happy with them. We're doing the deal goes like this: you get 50 3-inch by 3-inch stickers for $29.50, which is
that's a bargain.
That is a bargain. Okay. You are not going to find a better deal. Leading sticker competitors, their stickers don't stick the way Riot stickers stick. Sharpie Riot, he is an incredible proprietor of Riot stickers, and he's an independent business owner and personable and great. He's really great with designs and stuff. And like I said, $29.50 for 53-inch by 3-inch stickers. Just use the promo code Frumess. The description. The link is in the description of this video. So you go down there, and we have to do one last thing, Tank, before we move on. That's right. Thanks for the point. We're just going to listen to this 60-second video real quick. Riotstickers.com. Woo!
We make stickers, banners, and buttons too. Posters and promo cards. There's nothing we can't print for you. From stage backdrops to bass drum heads, we can print on shirts, we can print on hats, we can print
All right, we are
Wow.
back.
Okay,
You like that?
two things after watching that. One, I might actually contact these guys and place an order because okay. My nerd's going to be showing here a little bit. I'm on a competitive gaming team for a Star Wars collectible card game. I know, big dork, just with the L on my head.
Nerd.
I'm talking about like hats. I'm talking T-shirts. I'm talking stickers. So I'm like, I need a source. Second, who were those guys like skateboarding in that video? Because I skated my ass off when I was like a teenager. If I did any of those moves, I would have stone died. Like, forget it. I would have been dead.
So that video was given to me by Sharpie Riot. He runs riotstickers.com. I've done business with riotstickers.com in the past, and I got to tell you, Tank, that the quality of the stickers, I really stand by these guys. You should check them out. And if you do order stickers, you use my link down in the description, you get a good deal. You're not going to find a cheaper deal for stickers like that. He does all sorts of printing. He does banners, t-shirts, buttons. There's nothing that he can't print onto that, like the song says. That video, the song in the video was written by one of the guys in Less Than Jake, I guess.
I believe that totally.
Yeah. But yeah, riotstickers.com.
Cool.
No. They're really such an awesome guy. We did a whole show with him. Lynn is asking a question. I wonder if you can answer this before we move on. Lynn, I'm sorry. We've been kind of ignoring comments tonight because I want to keep the flow of conversation going. We have so much to cover. And, I just want to, comments are more for shows where I'm solo and then I'm I'm talking with the audience. Tank, what does 138 mean?
Well, it's dinner for 4.
It's dinner for Yes. I love that. It's dinner for 4. It's about violence.
It's 69 times 2.
That's what you said. That's what you said 10 years ago. You said that. You said it's 69 times 2. It's The Simpsons 138th episode.
Yes.
I mean, that had to be from a fiend, right? Like, there's no way that a fiend didn't, which brings me to my next question. Now, in the late 80s, before the age of the internet, when you saw something mainstream and famous, and I'm using those terms for lack of better other ones, I guess, it's usually it's on TV, on network TV, right? If you see something on network TV, it's like, whoa, that's on network TV. That's famous. Tell me what you remember, and you have to remember this. It had to be on your radar. I'd imagine it was. When the Saved by the Bell episode, when Jesse takes too many pep pills, and this must have been in 1988 or 89, and she goes, "I'm so excited, I'm so scared," and on the back in her bedroom wall is a Evilive poster of the Misfits. I think it's Evilive. It's one of the posters of the Misfits, and I just imagine in my head that every fiend that had a television set is calling each other up on their rotary phones going, "Did you see what was on Saved by the Bell? Shit, Jesse's into the Misfits. Jesse's into the Misfits." Tell me you remember this, or you know what I'm talking about. And if so, was that like a big deal at that time?
I mean, I guess the way it really breaks down is any fiend who was watching Saved by the Bell was truly a poser and really shouldn't have been gone.
Fair enough.
I only heard about that posthumously. I never watched Saved by the Bell. I know nothing about Screech. Is that even the right show?
Screech, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Screech.
I know I saw what's her name naked in Showgirls or something. And
That's Jessie. Jessie Spano.
Right. Yeah. See,
she was a fiend. She became a stripper, but she was a fiend.
So do we know like actually who placed that poster? Was
in today's age of internet where they do the oral history of this incident in an article, you would imagine that there's like the oral history of how this poster got, on this back wall. Nobody knows. And I just assumed that it was just some guy who was who knew what was up, knew what time it was, and saw an opportunity to do the most subversive thing in the history of television of the 80s, putting a Misfits poster that only you literally had to be doing two things in order to understand that poster. You had to be a fan of the Misfits
Right.
at that time, which was super obscure and secretive and whatnot. And B, you had to be watching Saved by the Bell. And if you did those two things at the same time, that would have exploded your mind. Yeah, it would have exploded.
What exploded my mind, because I wasn't a poser watching Saved by the Bell. Thank you very much. I saw, it might have been on HBO, or I forget where I saw it, but the Australian, or actually New Zealand film, Once Were Warriors, with a very young Tamura Morrison, decades before he was Jango Fett.
Wow.
And he played Jake the Muss, and which is a sort of slang for mouse, actually. But in the bar, there was a flyer. And this was not like a punk bar, so I don't know where this placement came from. There was a flyer with a Misfit skull on it. And I remember like, oh my God, there's a, like that was like mainstream enough, I guess, to be mind-blowing. And then it just all kind of takes off from there. But great movie, by the way.
I've never seen it, but I will definitely check that out.
Yeah.
Love that actor.
Yeah.
Okay. And then at the same time, you're here. Can we do a little slideshow with your permission only? Can we do a little slideshow?
I'm totally unprepared. I don't know what I'm getting into here.
No. Just a photo of you in high school.
Oh boy, this ought to be
those
good.
photos. And I'm not going to do it unless you say it's okay. And I don't.
Is this the one where I'm getting pantsed? Because this might be.
No. Why would I have that photo? Why do I have that photo? What are you talking about? No, I'm looking at a photo of you by a school bus. I'm looking at a photo of you opening the thing that I have on the thumbnail. Is that okay? Can we show those?
Roll the fucking dice, Wayne.
All right, I'm going to roll the dice. All right, but I wasn't going to do it without asking you first. Okay.
You're a scholar and a gentleman.
I felt it was the only right thing to do. Okay, this is what. Now here's the other thing too. We're gonna flip this. We're gonna flip the script a little bit here. At the many years ago, I also got to interview Mark Kennedy at Elizabeth's house, and Mark Kennedy tells a completely sort of or tells the story from an opposite perspective. You could almost imagine this being like some sort of like quirky '80s miniseries about like kids that bond over like music, like after school special type stuff, that kind of thing. This kid Mark Kennedy, who lives in, I forget where did he live in DC or was he in Virginia too?
He was in Virginia. He was in
Virginia. So
he was in Vienna, Virginia, I believe.
So he had also got turned on to the Misfits around 88, and he started hearing these rumors that Glenn Danzig was roaming around like this. It sounds like the way he tells it, it sounds like Bigfoot sightings. Yeah. Like Glenn Danzig was walking around the mall. He was walking around this place. He was walking around that place.
Bear Oaks Mall in Fairfax, Virginia. That's where the legend birthed. Yeah.
Yeah. And Mark Kennedy's like, what's Glenn Danzig? What would he be doing around there? And
selling hot dogs. Yeah.
Yeah. Selling hot dogs.
True. Yeah.
And I guess this is the kid that was mistaken. Not this one in particular.
God, look how skinny I was. Holy crap.
Now this is acceptable, right? These photos, they're
on my Facebook page. I mean,
that's why I didn't fit. That's why I thought it would be okay. But again, I'm just double checking.
I'm still here for my attorney, but yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, of course. Here's another one. Wait, this is good. Okay. This is good. Oh boy. Yeah. Oh boy. Look at that guy.
Yeah. Got the Danzig belt on and everything.
Yep.
Look at me.
Yep. With that. You got some devil.
I would date that kid. I totally would.
Yeah, I bet you would. But this is what you looked like in the late 80s around like, when you're getting into this stuff.
Yeah. And 88 was the beginning of my senior year.
This is my favorite one.
My fourth. That was a couple years after high school. I'd embraced.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is like Danzig. This is like early Danzig era Danzig. This is like Danzig 3 era Danzig.
I think this might predate Danzig 3. Actually, this
really.
Yeah, this might be more like a Danzig 2.
So
era.
he copied you. He was the one that was.
That's right.
He was emulating you, not the other way around.
This was cosplaying before cosplay was cool. Okay,
that's what it is. That's how you have. That's how I look at this.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I look at this. I look at this as you cosplay. This is what you're doing.
Cheesecake.
Oh, man. By the way, I just want you to know that this is the thumbnail for this video. This image.
Yes. Everybody, hey, I'm sorry. I had no idea he was going to do that.
He had no idea. It was one of those what is it? Ask forgiveness later.
Yeah. I'm thinking I'm 18 or 19 at that era. Okay, at this point, I still had a really long devil lock, like halfway down my chest, but I had the long hair growing in at the same time, so I always wore the bandana. This was me and Big Dave introducing the Undead at a really cool haunted house in Virginia Beach in like 89. Yeah, summer 89, I think.
So this is when like Bobby Steele is just like, you know, everybody's like, yo, fucking ex-Misfit played Misfit songs. Like, you know, Bobby was doing pretty well on that. And you know, and I don't want to take away from the fact, like, I love those Undead songs too. When the evening comes, and I, you know, I think I even said this to Bobby recently. I was on a show with him on another person's podcast, and I said, you know, in a weird kind of way, When the Evening Comes is technically, I mean, it's not a Misfit song, but it was rehearsed by the Misfits without Glenn Danzig. And then Glenn Danzig came down and he was like, he's like, I'm the guy who writes the songs, and it was rejected. Right. But when I think of When the Evening Comes, like, I could totally imagine it as a Misfit song. There's some great Undead songs. 84 in 84. I Don't Want to Feel the Pain Anymore. So I don't want to take away from, it's not just like he's only doing Misfit songs.
Oh, right. Yeah, definitely.
But
interesting. Could we go back to that last picture with the Undead?
Yes, hold on. Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting it right now.
Okay, well, not the pic. It made me think of something, and maybe the listeners can help me with this because it's been on many years.
Let me see. If I can find it.
We played that show in Virginia Beach. That was actually supposed to kick off a tour with the Undead that Big Dave and I were going to be the roadies on, and then the band broke up.
Really?
Tim Taylor and Eddie Enzyme, they had a falling out with Bobby, and the whole tour fell apart, and we never got our chance to roadie for him, except for that one night. But at that show, there was a compilation record for sale called Brain Food. All right, one of the Undead tunes. It was all bands from Jersey, and one of the bands that was on there, along with the Undead, was a band called Piece of Wood, and they had a song called That Dream. I have scoured the earth to find this song, and I found it on YouTube, but it's a different version, and it's a very different version. If any of our listeners have access to Brain Food, the compilation, and could get me an MP3 of that song, I would be eternally grateful, because that is a really fucking cool song. And
if you do find it, send me contact me. Send me an email, and I will connect you with Tank here, and you can
make me a very happy man.
Make him a very, very happy man. Mordecai says, I was only a kid and I couldn't afford anything on the site, but Grimm's Misfits auction took up as much of my time on as Misfit Central. I just loved looking at everything.
Right.
And listen, we're going to get there. I don't want to talk about it right now because we have to sort of land the airplane here very soon.
Yes, there's so much we still haven't covered in this early era.
There's I know. We might have to do a part 2 of just this one alone. But we're getting there, but let's talk about the Mark. Maybe we'll fill out Mark Kennedy, and then we'll wrap it up, and we'll move on from there.
Well, we cut on that photo of me actually playing bass on stage with that really long devil lock there.
Yeah. What about? Oh, you want me to put that back up?
There's an interesting story behind.
Yeah, please tell it. I'm getting it right now. One second.
Photo credit where photo credit is due. Elizabeth Boris took that photo. It was at the original 930 Club in Washington, D.C., legendary venue. It was a gong show. What
does that mean? Explain what a gong show is for people.
It's a talent show where there's 3 judges, and if you really stink, you will get gonged.
Right, you get the hook.
but there, by the end of the night, all the votes are tallied up, and all the scores are given, and one band essentially wins. It wasn't necessarily bands; it was like little vignettes. I think it was the theme for the night was John Waters. So if you came up and did like a little John Waters related skit, you actually got like points for that. And you might actually win.
Did you do that?
Yeah. So me on bass, Big Dave on guitar, our buddy Anthony is singing, and my buddy Steve, who I mentioned before.
He says Steve Lucas is
Steve
here.
Lucas, he was there. There he is.
I was there.
Man, the myth. That's like my old lifelong buddy, the guy who got me into the Misfits. He's the reason we're here tonight, folks.
Steve,
Mother effing Lucas. I don't believe it. Holy crap. So he was playing drums. We would joke that his name was Cop because he wasn't Robo. He was Robo Cop. So anyway.
Got it.
So we're playing. We call ourselves Fiend Club. We dressed up like the Misfits. I actually had an old Japanese guitar that I painted all up with like Captain Harlock stuff all over it. We started with All Hell Breaks Loose. And then went into Mommy, I think. We did kind of a medley. But anyway, we started, and this guitar that Big Dave was like 6'6". I mean, big tall guy. And he had this little tiny old Japanese guitar that was like my grandfather's. And Steve, I was wondering when this was happening. Well, here it is, going live. But it was so small, he had to turn his back to the crowd and hold the guitar like out and like play it to the side to make it look like a full-size guitar.
Yeah.
But like he started playing it. And then this was all the plan. He cranks it off at some point and smashes it on stage. Like smash it. Yeah, Mommy. Okay, so All Hell and Mommy. And I know that tape is around somewhere, unfortunately. So he smashes it, throws it out in the crowd, and I'm seeing kids like diving on each other and tackling each other, trying to get pieces of this piece of junk guitar from like the 1950s that we just smashed to smithereens, because it's like, this was the closest thing you could get to the Misfits back in 89, whenever. I think this was 89. I'm pretty sure this is 89.
Right.
And so when the show was over, and Elizabeth took a whole bunch of photos that night. This is just one of many. I know I've got them in an old photo album somewhere. The judges were like, holy shit. That was nuts. Like they scored us like through the freaking roof. Like we're like, holy shit, we got this.
No
we didn't actually come here. What's that?
No gong for you.
No gong for us. And I thought for sure we had it in the bag. Not that we really went there to win, and we just went there to play and have a good time. And then the band that came on after us, like all their friends and girlfriends and stuff were there, and they ended up winning. But whatever. But yeah, so that's the Fiend Club. That was, I still had the Devil Lock. You can see it's actually down to my bass strap.
Wow.
Before I actually cut it off. That's how long it finally was.
Now, quick story. Quick story. Yeah, this is a story. When I finally got to see the Misfits with Glenn and Jerry in 2016, I went to Riot Fest Chicago. I saw it. I didn't see this happen. My friend related it to me after the fact. I had Sal B was working the show, so he got me backstage, and I had like separated from my friends. I came back, and I was, Jerry had Jerry gotten back into the habit of breaking the basses and taking it to a whole new level. And now, how he did his thing. But my friend said, it just made me think of this just now when you were talking about what you were just talking about, that, the last bass, he had like thrown it super high up in the air, smash it, threw it super high in the air. And that, and I remember like the carnage that was left from that field, 84,000 people seeing the Misfits in Douglas Park, 84,000 people. There were piles of shoes, like everything you could. Actual shoes. Like people were going so crazy. They were just decided, the madness had set in that I'm going to take off my shoes. Like I'm going to just take off. Like I couldn't believe it. There's like thick mud everywhere, and then just piles of shoes. And my friend said that the people that the body of the bass had landed in an area, 6 or 7 people each had their hand on the bass. They weren't pulling on it, but it was like 6 or 7 dogs that all claimed the same bone. Yeah. And it was like, no one was going to walk. It was like one of those contests where everybody's touching the car. Like nobody's going to walk away from that bass. And I don't know. It's amazing how these fragments of, because they're connected. Yeah. They're connected to this thing They're
Yeah.
connected to the memory. They're connected to the energy. They become relics is what they
Right.
are.
Right.
Tokens. And, you know, why are they valuable? They're valuable because we care about this shit. That's why they're
Yeah.
fucking valuable. So
There,
fuck you.
somebody,
You know, like,
I didn't see it, but somebody saw, I think it was a girl after that show, after that Gong Show,
yeah.
holding the neck of that old Japanese, you know, guitar, like
Yeah.
for dear life. Like this was the prize, you know, like we're just a bunch of jerks up there. And so what are you doing?
It's like you said, man, you couldn't get the real thing
get,
back then.
The lead judge actually said something like, you know, Danzig's playing to how many people, and you know, here we are, and he referring to Big Dave. He's like, and Doyle's playing to what, you know, what do we have here, like 50 people or whatever. But yeah, it was that was all you could get back then. You know, there was that or Bobby. You know.
Well, what about this too? So let's say that you're like on the occasions where you do see someone else that you don't even know, but you see them that they're wearing a Crimson Ghost on their person. You see someone with a Crimson Ghost shirt. Do you get super excited and run over to them to talk about it? Or is it just kind of like, you know, yeah, cool.
Yeah, right on. When I worked for the band, I always had a pocket full of Doyle's little Annihilator keychains. And if I saw somebody with any Misfits anything, I would come up and I'd hand them one of those keychains. I'd just say, hey, thanks for your support. And they'd be like, what? And then I would introduce myself and we'd get to talking. And it was usually a great conversation. But yeah, that was always a shtick. Not so much anymore. But it always catches my eye. I'll kind of look.
No. I'm specifically referring to the 80s.
Oh, yeah. If I saw something like that, I'd be like, oh, hey, bro, what's up? Well, you Misfits? We got to talk, man. Oh, yeah, that was back then.
That's what I mean.
That was your only networking, was to just, by happenstance, to run into somebody that had a bumper sticker or, you know, whatever. So, yeah, I definitely made a point to talk to anybody who had something like that going on. I remember Steve and I at Sunshine House, which was like a surf shop at the local mall, but that's where all our skateboard stuff was. There was some guy like I never saw him before, never saw him again, had like a total Samhain leather jacket, and Steve and I were just like, oh my God, that's so cool. And it was just, we weren't steeped enough in it yet to be like, hey, dude, let's talk. But I remember like just being enamored with that guy and his whole like look. This, you know, the November Coming Fire painted on the back of his jacket. And just, oh my God, that's so awesome.
Our friend Runner Dial Zero, who is a YouTube supporter, and we appreciate his support here on YouTube. So we just want to say thank you. Has gotten the stuff supposedly. Here's what you're going to do. My email is, go to the channel under the about section. That's my email address for like YouTube related stuff. Send me an email there, and I will make sure that Tank gets it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
So
and thank you for the support. Love Runner Dial Series. Always in the comments. Nice. Always giving us good comments and commentary and stuff. Good. So now let's bring it back to what I was saying before. So I'm talking to Mark Kennedy about 10 years ago. And Mark Kennedy literally says the best thing ever about in all the people that I've interviewed over the years. He says the greatest thing about the Misfits that I think I've ever heard, like that just tickles me pink. And for you, it might be like a commonality, but like for me, I just had never heard it. And I just loved it so much. He said, the Misfits are like a stoplight. Red is no, yellow is whoa, and green is go. I died when I heard that. Mark. I died. I love that so much. I don't know where he got it from. But in any case, so Mark Kennedy, at some point, you know, you and Mark meet up. How does that happen? And what is the beginning of this bond or this friendship or whatever, this kinship? Explain that to me.
So as legend has it, Glenn Danzig was milling about Fair Oaks Mall in Fairfax, Virginia. And this is the word that, you know, was on the street that Mark Kennedy got wind of. It ends up, it wasn't Glenn. It was a piss poor imitation thereof in the form of me. So I was working. I had a couple jobs. First job was like slinging hot dogs and serving beer at a hot dog joint. And then I moved across the hallway, got like, big promotion. I actually wore like a tie to work or whatever, restaurant management kind of shit. Thankless job. But the phone rings and I answer, like, bonsoir, vie de France, je m'appelle Jim, how can I help you? But, the whole shtick that we were doing for a French cafe kind of thing. And the voice on the other line says, Jim? I say, yeah. He says, Jim Dorsey? Yeah, can I help you? And there's like this pause, like, oh my God, I've been searching for you for years. I'm like, crank caller, like what? What are you talking about? I'm like, who? I feel like I'm getting punked. So it ends up, it's Mark Kennedy. He finally, after years, tracked me down to working at Vie de France. Gets the number there, like some other wacko that calls people like at their jobs and a pool service. I'll call those guys. It seems to be a reoccurring theme. And so he introduces himself, and I'm like, wow, okay. Yeah, you're working on a website and you're steeped in all this Misfit stuff and gathering information. And just from the very brief conversation I was able to have with him on the phone at work, I could tell he knew his shit. So this wasn't just like some bullshit. I'm like, all right, well, we need to get together. And Mark, my interaction with Mark kind of re-sparked the passion for me again. Like there was that initial boom, for several years of like getting everything. And I'm like, I've kind of got everything. Is there anything I can really even get anymore? I'm kind of slowing down because if there is something, it's going to be way out of my price range. Like I'm kind of in a holding pattern now. So Mark, we get together, and what was supposed to be just like an evening of just like, he's going to come over and look at my collection, and we're going to talk about some things, maybe compare some notes.
I'm so sorry. Can I interrupt you for one moment? Yeah, that was just me interrupting you politely, as polite as possible without cutting you off.
Damn it, Jeff.
Why does he want to call you in the first place? Is it just because you're a big fan, or is it because he knows you have this massive collection and wants to catalog it? What is the reason? Sorry.
Somehow he knows I have this collection, and
Gotcha.
he is eager to catalog.
Okay.
As well as just, I'm sure just meeting another like over.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, immediately we click. And he actually ends up being like a very legit, nice guy, like just a cool guy that I'd hang out with regardless. So what was supposed to be just like an evening of like, let's just get together, for an hour or two, ends up going for like all night into the wee hours of the morning. We end up at like a Kinko's in the middle of the night, a 24-hour Kinko's. And we're just like, I'm copying all of his stuff. He's copying all flyers and articles and fanzine stuff and photos. And I'm talking binders. Like when he came over, I had 4-inch thick binders, one for the Misfits, one for Samhain, one for Danzig, one for the Undead. So all not my flyers were up on the wall, but like all my interviews, my articles, my this and that, ads, minutia was all in these binders. So we just went through like page after page after page, and he's going through my records and he's checking matrix numbers and like, oh my God, wait, he's discovering things. He's really flipping the fuck out. And it was at that time, that's when I realized that the record, the Who Killed Marilyn, that I bought from Glenn's collection when he brought it into Bleecker Bob's in Hollywood, was marbled vinyl. Because I thought it was just purple vinyl. He holds it up to the light, and he's like, "Yeah, you've got a streak of yellow in there, or whatever. It's clear." He's like, "This is marbled vinyl." I'm like, I'm marbled vinyl. I'm picturing like black and white swirled. I didn't know it was like that. That meant it was that streak meant it was marbled. So apparently, I bought 2 things from Glenn's collection that he brought in there: the a test pressing of Who Killed Marilyn, and then the marbled vinyl Who Killed Marilyn. And I think I got them for pretty good prices, surprisingly. But anyway, so we, and this wasn't the first night that we got together. We got together many, many other times, and just we were constantly just like back and forth on the phone, and just comparing notes. And did you hear this? Is this true? Can you check this for me? Can you look at that? And can we put these side by side? And just so much information like that. I think that was the pivotal moment when it went from like, okay, we have this to, oh my God, now we're ready to go. we're ready to like Misfit Central is like legitimized, and we're ready to launch.
This is and what's interesting is you talked about the 4 binders.
Yeah.
And if you look at the 4 tabs on Misfit Central, because there's one for the Undead.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of interesting, like, to imagine that he's setting that up or organizing that, and that's there because there was a binder full of Undead stuff. So of course, and then obviously that's why there are transcribed articles, which must have come from the fucking binders.
Yeah.
Right. Holy shit. I never thought about it like that. So like everything.
I think there were 5 binders. I think there was a Christ the Conqueror one, even though there wasn't much stuff in it. Much stuff in
right. All that stuff gets folded under the Misfits 95 earlier on. That tab didn't go anywhere. So. We'll circle back to that in a second.
Yeah.
But and that's incredible. So this exchange of information is where, all this.
That's where it all began.
That's where it all began.
That's when it exploded. That's when it really exploded.
Well, that's when but now this is, but at the same time, now how does this tie in with the Misfits Bible, the email list chain thing?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're talking about the website. The website didn't come until later in the 90s?
Right.
So what year did you guys meet up? Help me. Give me
we met up in, I'm going to say, the middle of 94. Because he was the one that said, oh, Jerry is going to be at Chiller Theater in Secaucus, New Jersey, Halloween weekend. And he's looking for singers, to audition. And I'm like, really? Okay. So Steve and I, Steve, we keep going back to Steve. He should be on this fucking show. Why are you talking to me?
Make that happen.
Right. So Steve and I road tripped up to New Jersey. The poor guy, Steve, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna, I can't apologize enough. I was really into gaining weight back then, and I was really blossoming as a weightlifter. So I was drinking a lot of protein shakes.
Oh no.
The 5-hour ride to New Jersy was rather aromatic.
All those bumps.
Yeah.
Aromatic. That's the perfect way to put it.
It was and it had a tenacity where it was instantaneous. Like as soon as it came out, he was like, "Oh my god, holy shit!" He's like flipping out, and I felt so bad for him. But it's got to get out. You can't.
You can't. Better out than in, as Shrek always says.
I'm gonna blow up otherwise.
Yeah.
But so we get to Secaucus, or we ended up in like the old stomping grounds of the Iceman. Yeah, he threatened to light up like the chest. Exactly. It was the only way to kill it. We end up at this god awful hotel. We walk up to the check-in counter. The guy's behind like bulletproof glass. I'm like, it's me and Steve. We're like, hey, we need a room. And the guy's like, for the hour or for the night? I'm like, for the night. I'm like, what? I'm looking to sleep. So we get in the room. Oh my god! I'm pretty sure there was like a needle, a syringe on the floor, and it was a bad
one of those joints.
Oh my god! I literally, no lie, I used to travel with a sawed-off shotgun in the back of my car at that.
Oh my god!
Back in those days.
Well, if you're gonna travel, listen. If you're gonna travel with a weapon, it better gosh darn be a sawed-off shotgun,
double barrel.
You want to know something? I don't own guns. I don't, but I and my wife would kill me if I ever owned a gun.
Right.
And I'm not like a proponent of guns. I have no opinions. I'm not trying to get political or apolitical or anything. All I'm saying is the only reason why I'm bringing this up is I've always said if I had to have a weapon, if I had to have a weapon, it would be a double-barreled shotgun. That would be my weapon of choice.
Man. You got to.
Yeah, it would hands down to factor. And I even thought in my head, I said, I would never want to keep like live rounds. So what would I do? And I was like, I would just fill those suckers up with salt. I just have salt, and that way no one would get hurt. But they would get hurt. Well, they would get hurt, but no one. I would never want to. I don't want to take anybody's life, even if they're invading my house. But I definitely want to hurt them. and I would definitely want to hurt him with some rock salt.
Right, exactly.
And Kill Bill style.
Yeah,
Exactly. So no, but I get it. I get the double barrel shotgun thing.
Yeah.
In any
So
case,
I slept. We slept in that hotel room. That shotgun was under my pillow.
My God.
That is how sketchy this place was. We tried going to a McDonald's when we got into town, and like for some reason, I think I walked to the drive-through and they wouldn't take me because I wasn't in a car. I'm like,
yeah, that happens.
Money spends like there. What the? So anyway, long story short. So to get to Chiller Theater, as soon as we walk in the Meadowlands Hilton,
this is the first one, right?
No, I don't know if it could be 90.
I think
Halloween 94.
That was the first Chiller. That was Chiller. Obviously, everybody knows Chiller Theater was the Zachary show, but when it became a convention, I am almost positive. Don't hold me to this. Can someone in the comments look that up? When was the first Chiller Theater? I think it was 94. Yeah, find out for us. First Chiller Theater convention, please.
Yeah, and of course, Cool Guy 101 was there, but just saying. So Jerry's. I walk in the front door. Steve and I, like, Jerry's right there. He's right in front of us. Like, holy shit!
Yeah,
it's Jerry motherfucking only. And he's talking to some guy. I think he had a mohawk. And he was telling Jerry some story or another. And Steve and I are like, we're waiting, next in line. And mid sentence, while this guy's talking, Jerry looks over at me and goes, "You're that collector from DC, aren't you?" "Why, yes, I am." Holy shit, Jerry only knew who I was. Oh my God, this topped the time that when I was a senior in high school and he called me and interrupted my dinner. That was amazing, but this is
right. Phil, hold on. Pause real quick. Don't drag it out, but just fill us in real quick about that, because that's technically the first time.
That is technically the first time. The Doyle fan club was a little slow in getting product out. So as soon as anything came available, because I was so hungry for everything I'd get my hands on, immediately my money was in the mail. It was out the freaking door. And then I would wait, and I would wait, and I would wait, and like nothing would show up. I'm just reading the comments.
1990 was the first Chiller Theater. Thank
1990. Okay, so this is about 4 years later. Okay. Still pretty early,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I must have included my phone number in this letter that I wrote to Jerry, just saying, "Hey, I ordered this stuff." Or I didn't write to Jerry. I wrote to the Doyle fan club, and just saying, "Hey, I ordered this stuff and nothing's come in. I just want to make sure I'm, not getting ripped off here. What's going on?" So Jerry, being Jerry, didn't write back. No, he picked up the phone and he called. And I'm with my I stayed with a foster family my senior year because of just trouble at home.
Yeah.
And we're having dinner and the phone rings. Is Mrs. Bucknam or Miss? I forget if it was Mr. or Mrs. Answered the phone, and they're like, "Yeah, he's right here. Hold on." And she hands me the phone. She's like, "It's for you." I'm like, "What? Who the hell's calling me?" "Hello, hey, Jim, it's Jerry only." I'm like, What? Sorry, Jerry, I can't talk right now. I'm having dinner. Can you call me back later? Right.
Can you call me back later?
I'm eating my peas and carrots here. He just wanted to let me know, to assure me that, hey, everything's legit. We just had some hangups with the printing, or I don't remember what product it was I was waiting for. Probably the Doyle posters. And he's telling me about, I've got a little kid at home. I've got Sid Vicious's boots and just like random info. And that moment had such an impact on me. I remember drawing a picture of this event the next day at school, like on the back of an index card. And I swear,
I wish you still had it. I wish you had that. I would love to see that so much, so badly. I would love to see that.
I can make your dreams come true, my friend.
Yes.
I still have this postcard.
Fuck yes.
Yeah. If I don't have the original, I have a scan of it, because that was.
I have to see this.
Yeah, it was. Oh my God. He called me. He called me. Jerry only called me, and it was funny because so this is my first ever experience with Jerry only, and I noticed something that would become a trend for the next several decades. As we spoke, or I should say, as he spoke, I couldn't get a word in edgewise. The man talked so much, and I had so many questions. I had so many things I wanted to say. He just totally steamrolled the conversation, and I didn't get to say anything except "Okay, thanks, bye." Like, oh my god! And that's Jerry only to it.
I always do a Jerry impression on here, like the big gregarious. Hey, Jerry Ollie for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Is everything?
And this was 88, 89. That was him back then too. I mean, nothing changed.
But it's just funny because when you read interviews with Jerry only, it's always that, like, especially like later, like after, I guess, really after the 95, like the original 95 era, like after, like 2000, post 2000, everything is for the kids, kids for the kids. Like he, like, I feel like he just like realized that there was like multi-generational stuff happening.
Right.
And so he started zeroing in on the kids being there and like wanting to do things for the kids and for the kids.
Yeah.
And so it's become a thing on our show where we talk about for the kids. For the kids.
Yeah.
All right. So now you're at, so he recognizes you.
Yeah. He's like, "You're that collector from DC, right?" Oh my God. And I'm like, "Yes, I am." And he says, I'm here to talk to him about maybe coming up to audition. He says to me, "So, can you sing?" And I'm like, "I'd like to think so." He's like, "Hey, I want you to come up and try out." I'm like, I'm here to ask you that. What? Yeah, wow, mind fucking blown. So yeah, let's make this happen. So we set a date for like another weekend in November, and I made sure I had that Sunday off, and Steve was with me at the first meeting. He wasn't with me when I came back to audition by myself, but he came back the third time I went up there so he could audition for drums and I could kind of like follow up with another audition for the vocals. That's when I brought my PA system with me. And the cool thing about when Steve was playing, I remember Doyle looking at him and saying, "Man, you hit really hard." And Steve was like, "Fuck, that ain't right, I do."
Wait. So hold on. So first of all, what is your, I mean, how fucking excited are you for the rest of this day? What do you do? What do you do when you see Mark Kennedy? Like, you must have been like, "Oh, guess what?"
Oh, I do the usual, put him in a headlock, give him a big noogie, whatever. No, he was probably the first one I got on the phone with. Like, "You're not going to believe this. Jerry just asked me to come up and audition." But I think Mark knew that was the point that Jerry was at. Like, okay, the court case is wrapped. We're going to get the band back on the road. We need a new singer. We need a new drummer. Chud is like the rehearsal drummer, but he's not the official guy yet. Wasn't sure why. So, Mark, I think kind of lit the fire to get me up there to light the rocket. So,
can we dial back for 2 seconds? And I just very quickly, you mentioned that you had ordered merch from the Doyle fan club. And that, from that, you had heard about Christ the Conqueror. What are your impressions of Christ the Conqueror at that time when you order it? Like, in terms of like, like what like you see that this is a different direction from Misfits. And also like it ultimately doesn't end up going anywhere. And instead the band is going to return. When do you remember being aware of the fact that Christ the Conqueror is really not going to happen, and that Jerry is going to try and bring a version of the Misfits back together?
I guess around that same era, because so the first time I went up there, I saw Christ the Conqueror stuff like stage gear, big spiked headdresses and capes and things, and Christ the Conqueror. It's like a platypus. Like, where do you put that? It's a poisonous mammal that lays eggs, and like what? How is that even possible? When Christ the Conqueror came out, I was ecstatic because I was so hungry for anything from these guys. Whether it was Glenn, it was Jerry, it was Bobby, it was Mr. Jim. Could have farted and recorded it and sent it. I would have been fucking happy. I was happy to get my hands on anything. In the grand scheme of things, though, I've never been even remotely a fan of like hair metal. So it didn't really rub me the right way, but I was happy that I had it all the same. Like, that's kind of weird. So knowing that, okay, we got the name back, right? Yeah, truth, exactly. We got the name back. We're gonna put the band back together. We're gonna go back to so that's happening. So Christ is kind of shutting down now. It's a little bit of a relief. And I can back this up because here's a very, very little known fact. Going back to Big Dave again, may he rest in peace. And that's a whole other chapter is Big Dave Smith. When he was doing some paintings for Jerry and Doyle in their Christ personas, he was talking to Jerry on the phone, and this must have been like early 90, maybe something like that. Jerry was saying, so these are the show. This is what I'm envisioning for like Christ the Conqueror playing stadiums. We're gonna be doing backflips off our amps. We're gonna bring our weights. We are gonna bring our weights out on the stage and like pump iron. Like we're gonna show people how much we can bench. And I mean, as like 18, 19-year-old, like testosterone guys are like, oh, this is awesome. Like, oh my God, I can't wait. The backflips, with the weights, it's gonna be so cool. But now, as a more realistic human being, I'm like, what? Okay. But Jerry did. I will give him this. He can do. He did do backflips. I've seen him. Not on stage, but in a pool. He smacked his head pretty good doing it. But he did a backflip into the pool. This was all during the WCW wrestling days. He was training with some of our guys and learned how to do backflips. Pretty cool. So yeah, so that was the direction Christ was headed in. And Merp with unfortunately his drug problems and things just weren't working out. So it was quickly falling apart, unfortunately.
Wait, who Merp? You mean?
Yeah, Merp. Yeah.
Right. Now Merp is. I'm sure I don't know if you are or are not aware of this. Merp is the only person in the history of the world with a Christ the Conqueror tattoo.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. He's the one. He has a Christ the Conqueror tattoo. It's amazing.
Yep.
Absolutely amazing. So Merp is starting to. So Merp is on the outs, and at some point, Chud is the same age as Doyle, and their dads knew each other, right? Like Jerry Senior knew. Chud's
Jerry
dad.
Senior knew everybody, so that yeah.
And he's like an 80s drummer. I mean, he's like a new wave drummer, and Dan Kidney and the Pulsations and stuff. And he comes in and starts filling in for the Merp.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. But when I first came on, Chud was like the session drummer.
Right.
He was like I think part of the problem was like there was a day that he didn't show up for work, and he used the alien abduction excuse, which only goes so far, I think.
What?
Yeah.
What are you talking? Wait.
Yeah,
what do you mean? What do you mean he doesn't show up for work? You mean he doesn't show up to play?
I think he was working at the shop, at the machine shop at Pro Edge, Congruent. And then one day he just didn't show up, and they're like, Chud, what happened? Oh, there was like a bright light, and the aliens came down and with the anal probe, and
dead
Chud
serious.
Can obviously tell the story better than I can, but that's what like my first interaction with Chud and Jerry and like Doyle being all in the room together. That was like one of the stories I was told. I'm like, really?
Huh.
Interesting. Okay. I like this guy. So I came down, I auditioned. Chud handled all the recording stuff. He gave me a tape of just the music, and then he gave me a tape of the music with me singing over it, which I should have burned on the site.
No, stop.
Oh my God. Again,
you
could not hear anything except the bass and the guitar. Like I had no idea what I was singing. And we rehearsed 2 days in a row. The second day, my voice was shot. I had nothing. But the first day, which would have been Saturday, I guess, Friday or Saturday, whatever. No, it must have been Saturday because I had a dream the night before we went to the rehearsal space that I met Rocky. And in my dream, he had a beard, which he never had a beard. But he wanted to shoot. We were like looking at his guns. And I told Jerry about the dream in the morning. And I never interacted with Rocky at all, ever up to that point. And he's like, "Oh, the beard's not there, but the guns, that's very accurate. He owns a lot of guns." I'm like, wow, that's interesting. And then I met Rocky, unbeknownst to me that this would become like one of my best lifelong buddies for decades to come. Yeah, so that was. I'm in the room. I'm playing with Jerry and Doyle. Like, oh, fucking Christ! Supposedly, Doyle had written on the calendar that John Grimm was coming to rehearse, was coming to try out, and that meant he was actually like looking forward to it, was actually kind of excited about it because he didn't do that with other schlubs like me that were coming up to rehearse. So that was a bit of like, oh, okay, if Doyle's like into it. And I knew, like, thanks to Mark, I think I knew, like, when it was just like me and Doyle in the room, I knew to talk about like Star Trek or the Giants or, things that he'd be like, he would perk up and like actually interact with me. Cause otherwise he's a quiet fellow,
Is that your first time? Did you meet Doyle at Chiller Theater, or that was your first time?
Jerry was the only one there.
Gotcha.
Because we got there on Sunday. Doyle had been there on Saturday. Steve and I got there Sunday. Doyle was at the Giants game.
What about this story for Dagger Love is asking the story about Jerry and Doyle rehearsing while jumping on trampolines. Does that ring any bells for you?
None at all. I've never heard that before.
So you're there and you're meeting Doyle. What is going through your mind? You've already met Jerry or interacted with Jerry, but what is going through your mind with Doyle, especially because Doyle is Doyle, big, muscular, and you're like you're no small fry,
right?
When I've met Doyle several times. I met Jerry once. I met Doyle several times. I met Glenn a couple times, and when I'm, even though I'm 5'11" and a half, but like I feel like I look up at Doyle, like he's just this monstrous, and I shook his hand, and when I shook his hand, my small little hand fit in his giant mitt. He has mittens, like mitts. He doesn't have hands. He has these giant
doubles.
Yeah, he's just this giant hand. Like, he's a big guy. So, like, in that kind of way, and I don't know if he was as big then as he would. I mean, I feel like in the last 20 years, he's just gotten somehow bigger and more ripped than he was, say, in the 90s.
He has gotten a little bit bigger. It seems,
or more definition. Maybe it's more definition.
And this is one of the things that I learned as I got into bodybuilding in my 40s was bodybuilding is not about getting bigger. It's about getting ripped to look bigger. The more definition and the shape you can see in your muscles, the bigger you look. It's the difference between the peaks and the valleys becomes greater, and therefore it's the illusion of being bigger. So he has definitely gotten a lot more ripped. He was always in great shape. Doyle is blessed with perfect mesomorph genetics.
I think you're right, because he's like, Doyle's, well, let me think of 64, he's probably like 57, 58 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, the guy, like, he doesn't age. Like, he just looks, especially when he wears the white makeup all the time. If you're not seeing, he just looks like ageless. But so what is your feeling? Like, what is going through your mind when you first see him?
Honestly, inside, I am flipping the fuck out. Oh,
I'd imagine
my God.
So.
I am it's just me and Doyle in the practice room. Jerry's in the other room on the phone. Chud's not there yet. I'm just sitting here with Doyle. Holy shit. But I'm playing it cool. Totally playing it cool. I'm talking Giants.
Yep.
I'm talking a little bit of Star Trek. I'm talking about stuff that I know he would like to talk about. And it's like being on a date. Like, you got to know what to bring in the conversation. And, there's a protocol. But yeah, I was I was calm, cool, and collected. At least I thought I was on the outside, but yeah, inside, man, I was screaming. It was insane. What a night. Oh my God.
And just can we jump over to the Mark Kennedy side of things from what you would understand or know? We're not asking you things as fact, because like I said, it's not like you're it's not like you're there with Mark every second of the day.
Right.
But my question to you is this. So Mark at the same time is becoming close with Jerry, and he's in communication with Jerry because of the Misfits Bible or because of the Misfits Central? Like why, like where is that connection?
Yeah, Jerry was very keen on getting an internet presence.
Okay.
Mark's like, hey, I've got it all. It's got your name on it. I can
Gotcha.
put it out. And Jerry's like, fucking hey, yeah, sure, go for it.
Gotcha.
So yeah, Jerry was a big proponent of Misfits Central. In fact, we used to in the early days of the like 96, 97, 98 tours, we would put out the Doyle Quiet One.
Robbie, I think so. I think he is the Ringo of the Misfits. I think so, because you know what? People do shit on Doyle's playing, but Doyle is an incredible rhythm player. And if you look at his music now, whether you're into his music or not, I've said this time and again, it doesn't matter whether you like his music or not. He clearly knows how to write songs. He's clearly putting out, I mean, he's making this music, and it's not like, it's not necessarily like super easy to play. So for all the people that bag on him for his ability or lack thereof, like just look at the music he makes. Like that's him. That's all him doing that. You know, I've seen him live with just the Doyle, doing the Doyle thing alone when I was with Sal B. And I mean, he's that's him. There's nobody else playing guitar but him. So it's like, you spent how many fucking years did you spend with Doyle while he was playing guitar? Like the guy knows how to play guitar.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nobody bends their neck like he does, I tell you.
Yeah. So, you know, he does what and he'll be the first one to, in all those interviews, he's always the first one to say, I don't do much, but what I do well. And that's my thing. And I just do my thing. And Doyle's always been a guy who just does his thing. And that's it.
He does. He pounds a guitar like a fucking jackhammer. That's no fucking exaggeration.
That's just what he does.
When I teched for him, he would be out of tune after 3 songs. That's how hard he would hit that guitar. Every third song we'd be swapping out, and there'd usually be a broken string involved in there that I'd have to unwind and
just from what you just said just now is making me think like that section of our conversation is going to be like 2 parts of it of itself.
We're only scratching the surface here.
We have only scratched the surface.
We can dig into here. But you were asking about Mark Kennedy.
Yeah. And Misfits Bible too. Talk about like the chain letter thing.
Misfits Central. The original address was like Virginia EDU, like it was his college address.
Right.
You know? So that the early days when we were going on tour, and we actually had like a 900 number that you could call, and there'd be like a recording you could listen to, and like the tour dates would be on there. And I used to be the guy that'd be like, hey, you've reached, the Misfits hotline, and we're going away on tour, and come check us out at this show and that show. And just whatever information was on there. But we also did these black and white postcards that would mail out to the early, what was the Doyle fan club, just kind of rolled over into the Fiend Club, and that was now that database. And on those postcards would be this wacky looking, Virginia edu / other something, like it wasn't misfitcentral.com. It was all this other shit. That was on there. So it was like an official part of the Misfits world.
Right.
In the beginning, at least. In fact, Chud wrote a song for Mark called Overworked and Underpaid. Because Mark did all this work.
Fuck out of here.
Yeah. I'm sure Mark's got I'm sure Chud's got a copy of it too. I don't know if the song ever got recorded, but he wrote the lyrics for it.
Wow.
Because I mean, all this stuff, this was Mark's labor of love. This is what we all did back in the day. I would show up, before we were going back on tour. Oh, we're doing a convention this weekend, a KISS convention. Misfits are going to be all right. I'll make my way up. I'll pay my own way. I'll pay my gas. I mean, I know you guys will put me up when I get there, but I'm just coming up to help out and be a part of the scene.
But what's interesting? That investment, literally took you around the world eventually. You literally got to, I mean, you've been to Japan, you've been to South America. Like you've all of that stuff happened. Like, you know, because you were basically you were earning your bones,
It's
so to
what they
speak.
call sweat equity. Yeah. I
Yeah, dude.
put it in early. But
Yeah.
that wasn't like, I wasn't doing it because like, oh, if I do this, maybe I'll
No,
get
of course.
I was doing it because I fucking loved it.
But
I
that was the
loved being a part of
byproduct.
it.
The
Yeah.
byproduct
Yeah.
was, and that's just like a testament again to, like, you know, listen, people should always be paid for like their work and yada yada
Mhm.
yada. I think you and I both agree on that. But there's also something to be said, and this is more of an old school mentality that doesn't apply in the same way that it used to apply in like the 90s and 80s and 70s and stuff.
Mhm.
Because back then, when you did stuff like what you're doing, that would materialize into jobs.
Right.
Not as much today. It's
Right.
not the same today.
Yeah.
But that's like the idea. It's like you're doing something that you love and you're going to do it. You would be willing to pay to do it. And so like the idea that it like manifests into a job is like it makes complete sense, because that would be the byproduct of hard
It was
work.
the logical progression. In fact, it was said early on, after I think my second audition with the band. And again, I had a professional vocal instructor. I was hitting notes that I had never hit before, but at the end of the day, I'm a bass, and a bass is not what needs to be. You can't put Peter Steele as the frontman of the Misfits and expect it to work the same way.
Right. Right.
So again, Peter, may he rest in peace. Wonderful, wonderful man. So Jerry and I even tried like harmonizing. Like at certain points, he would go high and I would drop down, and then it wasn't working. It didn't work. But all that being said, they were like, "Hey, okay, so you're not going to be the singer, but you're going to do something." They liked me. We worked well together. I was kind of like a jerk of all trades. Oh, you need that done? I can do that. Oh, that too. I'll do that. I started. We were doing Saber ink back then, which was all the resin kits. And what started with
that was Kenny. Kenny was involved with that too, right?
Oh yeah. He was the main force behind that. But what started with, I think they had a screaming 12-inch vinyl of the Crypt Keeper, and I don't know if maybe Jerry C had painted it up or something. I was like, oh, if you want that like painted up nice, let me know. I'll do it. So oh no, okay, now I remember. There was a hobby shop in Sussex, which is like the next town over from Vernon here. For those who don't know, I live in Vernon because I worked for the Misfits. It was convenient that way. I moved up. Originally,
moved up there and he stayed.
Yeah, I was commuting from Virginia, like a 5-hour drive to go to work. What the hell? But there was a hobby shop that we stopped by one of the times that I was up here in the very early days, and they had a Creature from the Black Lagoon, the reissue of the old Aurora kit. And I was the Evil Eye and Earth AD plaques. That's what's coming down the pipe from all this stuff. I didn't have that one in my collection yet. I was like, oh wow, great. Let's and I think they bought it and sent it to me as a gift. Man, I'm really taxing my memory here. So I painted it up, and the next time I came up and I showed them like, hey guys, I painted up the Creature. And they, and this was just like basic dry brushing and wash techniques, like just the usual stuff. But they were like, oh, that looks amazing. Can you? That's where can you paint this Crypt Keeper model that somebody gave us? I'm like, yeah, sure, that's easy. So I brought him home and I dry brushed the hell out of him, so he would look really dry and like crackly and everything, and put the hair on him and did his book up and everything, and brought that back up, and it was like, okay, you're gonna be the guy that's going to paint all the prototype models for the the Earth AD plaque, the Evil Eye plaque, the unreleased Halloween plaque, the Jerry model, the Crimson Ghost model, the Doyle model, the Frankenstein model, the Hideous Sun Demon model, the Helen Blazes model, the other Crimson Ghost model, the Shrunken Head, like everything that Saber did or planned to do. Like I was the guy painting the original one for the photo for the box.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I did. So let's see, the Earth AD plaque.
Would you say? Let me ask you this real quick. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Is that like when Kenny sees you painting that stuff? Is that when Kenny starts taking a shining to you? Is he like, You know, is he like, huh, this guy, yeah, he knows because he's into models and, you know,
we like on a personal level, we hit it off immediately
gotcha.
because between the three Chi Alpha brothers, with Jerry, you couldn't get a word in edgewise, and with Doyle, well, he didn't have much to say. So Rocky was right in the middle, and like
Right.
we could carry on normal conversations.
Right.
So I think that's why he and I kind of clicked, and we had a lot in common. We saw eye to eye on a lot of things,
Mhm.
and then that might have been that first collaboration of like he sculpts, I paint. He sculpts,
Right. Right.
And because I remember seeing something. Was it the Frankenstein model? It was the Hideous Sun Demon. I was like, my God, look at the scales on this thing. Like how did you do that? And he goes, I'm a sculptor, Tank. I sculpt. It's like, okay, understood, gotcha. So yeah, that we worked closely on that stuff. We worked closely on eventually like the Fiend Club. Like he and I ran all that stuff together. It was just everything he and I touched turned to gold. The stage shows, the whole Frankenstein Mad Science Laboratory thing that we built up, the huge hit. We built tour buses together. Like everything we did, we're like we couldn't fail. So later on down the road, it was like we should do a business together. Yeah, well there you go, All American Pool Service. So yeah, we were painting all that stuff up. I know Jerry had a Cyclops model for Cyclopean Music that I painted up. Some oddball resin kit.
And at that time, there's two other. Oh my God, there's like so much shit. There's like, and I'm like doing this. This is all off the top of the head, guys. I don't have any.
There's no script.
I have nothing. I have. Sometimes I prepare notes. I have no fucking notes. I was literally like mentally preparing myself for where we would go. And maybe you could say, bully on you. You should have been more prepared. But like,
way to go, Jeff.
I just knew that this was going to be like this, and I just have to do this. I'm going to try and be as thorough as possible. There's two more subjects that, or two more questions I want to ask. No, but for now, we have to put a pin in this because we're already 49 minutes over what we intended to do. Because that's just how.
Do they charge extra for that?
No. We're good. We could go forever if we wanted to. I've thought about a long time ago. I wouldn't do it now, but a long time ago, I thought how a friend mentioned, what if you did like some sort of like telethon sort of situation or something where it was like the endless debate to end all endless debates of Graves versus Danzig sort of thing for 12 hours. The goal would be to do a 12-hour podcast of just going on and on. I was like, you know what? That is not the thing I want to do. So I was like, I'm not going to go there. But I was thinking like to try to really stretch my speaking powers. The longest episode we've ever done on this show is 5 hours and 8 minutes.
That's it.
So yeah, right. No. So two things that I'd like to cover before we put a pin in put a pin in this before we move on to the next era. Well, wait a minute. There's actually all right. Well, we'll see. So first thing, I want to quickly touch on Mike Hideous because Mike Hideous is going to come into play later in the story.
Right.
But he was around, and we had him on the show. He was on an episode of Pizza Punk. He was around earlier during the Christ the Conqueror stuff. And so my question to you is that from your point of view, and maybe the answer is nil, but from your point of view, where is Mike Hideous coming in and out of places, or where is he? Do you know who he is at this time?
No.
Is he around? No, nothing.
No. Our paths did not cross until he was coming on tour with us.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that.
Cross.
Okay.
So yeah, before I was coming up in 94, he was already making like cardboard cutouts for Christ the Conqueror,
because I had known he had done that. I just didn't know if you guys overlapped. Okay.
And I remember seeing those at the shop and thinking, so there's Doyle like with his Conan look, and this is all the Christ stuff that I guess really never got used except for like maybe in stores or something. And then I notice a signature like down at the bottom, and I look close, and I'm like, Mike Hideous, or no, I think it actually said Mike Malzone,
right?
And then I pieced two and two together, and I was like, like a light bulb went off. Like, holy shit! And it's funny because he and I were just talking about that like not even 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Like I think he was asking if I knew that stuff was still around. I'm like, I don't. I think everything's gone at this point. All that old stuff. But yeah, so he might have been like kind of. If I remember him telling the story correctly, I don't know.
He was on the show. I just don't remember what he said. And like I said, it's interesting. I always think that your story kind of begins way earlier with them. No, but your story with them really does begin in 94.
Yeah.
Truly, right? Yeah. But for me, in my mind, for some reason, I think it starts way, way earlier. And I know that I think he was hanging around with them as early as 88 or 89.
Yeah, I would imagine, yeah.
But like I said, I don't know if he's in and out or coming around or going around. Like that's why.
If he was, it never crossed my path.
Okay. Yeah, just curious.
I didn't know who he was until
98.
96.
Okay.
Michael's girlfriend Rachel mentioned him, and I was like, who, Empire? What? Who are you talking about? And I forget why that was brought up in a conversation, but that's when I first heard the name. And then it was, a couple years later, that this is Mike Hideous, and you're our new singer. Welcome aboard. So it was kind of like a quick little ditty there. It was strange times. Anyway,
strange times. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to touch on is the guitars. Because this is a huge part of the identity for this new version of the band, which we forgot to talk about that too. We're gonna to quickly touch back on George Germain for a second.
Oh yeah,
to ask you that George Germain, you're talking about what do you know about George Germain's customization of the Misfits gear, either by secondhand information or firsthand information? What do you know about the customization of the pickups in the Icemen, or the Icemen knockoffs, the Rickenbacker knockoffs, that sort of thing? Because they had been modifying and customizing guitars even as in the early Misfits before they start building their own guitars.
Right. Rocky might know more about that because he was close with George.
Yeah.
But I don't have any firsthand or reliable secondhand information on what was done.
No worries. So after the Misfits, and we've talked about this on the channel, I sort of recontextualize when I think of Christ the Conqueror. I think of it as like it's basically a guitar workshop band,
right?
In the sense that they're like designing their own gear and writing songs. It's like it's almost like a workshop in a weird kind of way,
right?
And they start building their guitars, and how does that begins almost 10 years prior, and now it's like 94 and those guys are playing their own custom gear. Where's things with that? And like Jerry, he's putting like different types of skulls on his bass now. He's putting like that Cyclops skull, which is what made me think of the Cyclops skull.
Which I painted dozens of those skulls in my tenure, by the way.
Right. Which was kind of like an evolution too, right? He had started the skull stuff in the early Misfits, and it sort of, that seemed to be the ultimate.
The ones he used on the original customized Rickenbackers were a solid latex rubber skull that Ken had a mold of, and he would have to pour layers of the latex rubber into it and let them cure, because they would cure in the air. So it was layer by layer. So each one of those skulls took like, I don't know, weeks to make. But then we switched over to resin skulls for the Cyclops versions, which I would just do like a quick wash, base coat and some wash and put them together. But they were all heavy. Any one of Jerry's bases, whether it was one of the old school Rickenbackers or one of the Devastators or whatever, if you let go of the neck, that neck was hitting the ground. I mean, it was that top heavy. You had to always hold on to that onto that base once that skull was on there.
But without the skull, the guitar was rather light. Like isn't it made out of like graphite or something that makes it light?
Not all of them.
Okay.
There were some models that were, but that's not cheap, and I think it's is it not as durable? I'm not sure the science behind all that stuff. But what we took on the road wasn't something fancy and expensive like that. It was just the shit that Doyle beat the hell out of.
And the guitar, the drums that are being played, you know, going back to even Robo's days, like in '83, he's playing bigger drums than, say, what a normal drummer would play. And how does that continue on with Chud's set? Is there a sort of continuation of that?
Yeah, we had two bass drums put together like end to end to make one long bass drum. In the outer one that had the larger diameter, which was it a 30-incher maybe? I wasn't the drum tech, so I didn't have all the specs on this. But I'm gonna put it out there that it was probably a 30-inch. I remember playing a venue in Baltimore called Memory Lane, and we could not. It was one thing if like you couldn't get the case through the door, then you would just take the drum out and take it through the door. The drum itself would not fit through the front door of the venue. We had to take the door frame off the wall to get our freaking kick drum into the building so we could do the goddamn show. Yeah, and then
sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm remembering there was an incident that was this is one of Ken's one of Rocky's favorite stories. Some kids were at that show and Ken was hanging out by me over by the merch table, and they come up and they're like, "Oh my God, you're Jimmy the Tank!" And Ken's like, "What? You know this guy?" They're like, "Yeah, that's Jimmy the Tank. He broke that table in DC." And Ken's like, "What these kids talking about?" Yeah, the show in DC at Nation that Michael got arrested at. Apparently, I sat on a table, and it just it just cracked in half, and they witnessed it. And my crew shirt said Jimmy the Tank on the back. They remembered it. I was a legend in their mind. Ken just thought that was the funniest thing. But anyway, it's a total.
No. That's awesome. Is that arrest would keep Michael from making it into Canada, right?
Correct. I couldn't. There was 4 of us that couldn't get in that first time. It was myself, Michael, the boss, who was Ken's father-in-law, driving the RV, and Bobby Benetti, our guitar tech at the time. We all had some kind of record. Well,
Canada strict.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. You get to the border of Canada. If you're going in as a tourist and you're going to buy stuff and spend money, great. Come on in. If you're coming in to make money and take it back home, okay, hang on. Now we got to turn some screws.
Yeah,
so
wow.
Stand there and they say to you, if you have ever stood before a judge for anything other than a traffic violation, whether you were found guilty or not, you cannot come into Canada to work.
Mother effer, man.
That's what we were told. And I had stood before a judge for a trespassing charge. My buddy and I were walking through the woods one night, and the police were at my car when we came back, and they busted us for trespassing. And so I stood before the judge, and I told him what happened. He's like, "Okay, do some community service, and I'll drop the charges." I'm like, "Deal, done." So I shoveled some sidewalks at a community center for a couple weekends, and nobody ever said anything about it. But because I stood in front of that judge, if they warned us that if you come into work and we find out after the fact while you're here that you stood before a judge, it's a minimum 3 years in jail. Nobody was willing to take that risk. So we stayed in the hotel in Buffalo for the weekend, or the whatever days it was. Somehow a lawyer got involved, and we were able to get Michael in on some kind of like paid pre-bail or something whatever it was. But the 3 of us just hung out. But from that point forward, every time going to the Canadian border, I had a notarized copy of my quote unquote criminal record that shows that the charges were dropped. So technically it never went to court.
Yeah, but what I find interesting is that both Jerry and Doyle were arrested for grave robbing.
Yeah.
In 1983, and they never had any issues. I mean, they had a court date. They were thrown in jail.
Yep.
I don't know what they were legally charged with. I don't think they were actually charged with grave robbing, although it is in the paper that they were arrested for grave robbing. So that is interesting that I mean, they just never had problems, or maybe they were able to make it go do some sort of magical lawyer thing that makes it go away. But that's fascinating. They had to have done something. Truly. I mean, Ken was the only one who didn't go. Ken was the only one who got away.
He bailed them all out.
He bailed them all out. And they played the.
Oddly enough, Robo was the last one that.
They played the joke on Robo.
Sorry, Robo, we didn't have enough money for you.
Yeah. So I'm trying to I don't want to end this, but like we have to put a pin in it. I'm like just trying to think of like the right place. So I guess we're actually at a pretty good place because this is right before the band really begins. And when we come back, you know, I mean, I have all sorts of questions about this time because I'm curious. We want to, I'll talk to you off air about it before we get started, and we'll make sure that we're both on the same page and move forward in the right kind of way. Yeah. And is there anything like egregious that we're leaving out about this time, about this period? What happens to the Misfits Bible event? Well, that comes later, actually. The Misfits Bible shuts down because like there's crazy rumors and stuff. It just gets like out of hand.
Yeah.
But you might have been like out of that by that time because it's like, you know, you're in full on Misfits tour machine world, right? Like it's just sort of out of your periphery.
Yeah. I'm thinking back to some of the early, like as a collector before meeting.
Yeah. Let's finish there with the collecting stuff. Go ahead. Perfect.
I remember like the shit that I used to get from like my girlfriend, or I didn't really get shit from my dad, but I remember telling him, coming back from there used to be a record store, it might still be there in Silver Spring, Maryland, called Vinyl Inc. This guy George owned the place, and you would go in there and there'd be like a bullet up on the wall and a German wolf's blood and like some bootleg. Like he had the shit. Like that was the place to go, and they would do these vinyl events every couple months, conventions. So I went to one of those, and like the first like legitimate collecting that I ever did was I bought a 3 Hits from Hell, just a standard issue one for like $65. And I remember coming back home and showing it to my dad, who had a massive record collection at the time. Oh man, Steve just told me George passed away. I think I knew that actually, but what a great guy he was. He really fed the addiction there for many years. I told my dad, like, I got this Misfits record, 3 Hits from Hell. It's I paid $65 for it, and my dad was like, what? $65 for a 45? Like that, but obviously that paid off years later. But at the time, like most people couldn't wrap their head around that. I remember my girlfriend finding out that I had bought a couple things from Bobby. I bought a Horror Business alternate sleeve.
Right.
Yeah, he would hold we'd call him up and he'd be like, "What do you got? I got a Horror Business. Okay, can you hold it for me? I'll hop on the subway and come back." He was so good to us.
And I'll tell you something, those Horror Business alternate sleeves, you know, it's funny. Bobby took those home. Glenn said, toss these out. Yep. And Bobby said, no, I'm going to keep these. And who would have thought that would have been, I mean, that was a severance for him, because he sold those for years.
Yeah.
I mean, decades even. He was selling those.
Yep.
I mean, like, it was a severance when you add up all the money he must have made selling those, that was like a sort of, I mean, you know, whether it was enough that, you know, deserved for what he, you know, contributed to the band and earned is not to be, you know, decided by us. But to think of it that he got a severance in a weird kind of backhanded way is interesting in that sort of way. So you bought that from him. You bought the alternate sleeve.
I bought an alternate sleeve and a bullet poster, both mint condition, right out of Bobby's attic for like $300 each.
Wow.
And my girlfriend at the time like lost her mind.
$300 back then too. What year was that?
This would have been 90, 91-ish.
Bobby, wow. I mean, if Bobby was making $300 a piece off of those, and he had a large stack of those sleeves. I mean, he must have done pretty well. I mean, he
actually no, it would have been later. I'm trying to piece my timeline together.
Yeah,
here. Would have been.
Steve says 90.
that I bought it from Bobby. No, I was working at Vita France when I bought it from Bobby. So this would have been closer to when I met Mark. So like 94, 93.
In any case, your
Yeah.
girlfriend was like, "What are you doing?
What are you doing? Why are you spending this kind of money?" Little did she know that this was going to set my future in motion. Little did I know it was going to set my future in motion. But
Did your dad ever find out that like you were able to liquidate your collection in that kind of way? And
most definitely.
Did he validate that sort of like, wow?
He was very, very supportive. We did the math, and I think all said and done, I must have paid about 10 grand to put everything together, plus the things that I just culled from just being there.
Right.
And then turned around and sold it for 50. So that was not a bad
You had a 5-time return on your investment.
Yeah.
And
which was not what I expected to live with this stuff forever, because I wanted it because I loved it. I didn't want it because this is going to become valuable someday.
Isn't that something though? It's just amazing. It's just like, I love that story. I really do. I really do.
I seem to have this knack. Like I should be, giving investment advice. I was into the Punisher back in the 80s before anybody knew who the hell he was.
Yeah.
And I bought Spider-Man number 129, the first appearance.
Oh my God.
At a convention. That's easily $1,000 comic book that I
still have it? You still have it?
I still have it. Oh yeah. I bought it for $8.
You have Spider-Man issue 300?
No.
I
did. I did it one time, and I got that from a friend.
I think that's Venom. That's first Venom, right?
Yeah.
Incredible Hulk 181. Oh my God.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
In any case, so you're still sort of you're piecing together the collection. Tell me about the evolution of the display of the collection and that whole thing.
The as Elizabeth Boris put it when we were on the Long Way Back from Hell tour, we stopped by my house. I think that was the only time she was ever at my house. I brought her up to my bedroom.
Pause. Explain what you mean when you say "come back from the long way back from hell" tour. What do you mean when you say that?
Yeah. So EVB and I and one of her roommates, we followed Danzig around to I'm going to say about 13 shows.
Amazing.
On the Long Way Back from Hell tour, and what an amazing trip that was. And I was totally on a shoestring budget. I had no money to spend towards this. Outside of the tickets for the shows and my share of the hotel room. But I was literally, this is no exaggeration, Elizabeth can vouch for this. I was living on ravioli sandwiches out of my suitcase.
I'm not laughing at your frugality, but I am. But I'm not. I get it, dude. I get it.
Oh my God, that was what I had a suitcase with my clothes, and the other half was some loaves of bread and some cans of Chef Boyardee raviolis.
Well, how else are you gonna live? I mean, you gotta live.
I would put raviolis on bread and eat ravioli sandwiches suitcase temperature, and that's what I lived on for almost probably 2 weeks.
Good carbs.
Yeah, and when you're what would I have been in 91? 20? I would have been 20. Yeah.
So you have the metabolism of a hummingbird.
Exactly. It didn't matter. And I'm going to a show every night, and I'm flipping out and sweating. So Elizabeth on a day off, I guess, on the tour, we were coming into DC for a show or whatever it was. We swing by my house in Virginia, and I show her my bedroom. I'm like, let me show you my shrine. And she walks in the room, she's looking around, literally every square inch of wall, ceiling, furniture, everything is covered. There's a 6 foot by 12 foot Danzig mural that the 3 panels make up one wall of my room, and the bed comes out from under the teeth, and there's a treasure chest on the floor where the lid is lined up with all these 7 inches and all the colored vinyl and Beware and stuff is down on the inside. And she's just looking around. She goes, "Oh my God, I have a shrine. You've got the whole fucking cathedral."
Right.
But in that place. Okay. So yeah, that was this stuff was always on display. Every poster, every flyer, every sticker, everything.
The surfboard
out there. The Christ the Conqueror. surfboard.
What?
I that was it. It had to go behind the treasure chest because it was so big. So I traded a really beat up copy of Horror Business to Lou Vomero for the Christ the Conqueror sword that was like 6-7 feet long. It was this wooden thing. It was the Christ logo with like a lot of electrical tape on it, so you know Jerry made it. And it was kind of falling apart, but it was just like it was a piece of Christ history. So that was in there. Like,
I have to interject for a second, and this is going to melt your mind. Recently, in the forums that you don't keep up with any of this stuff anymore, so I'll inform you.
I wish I had the time.
In one of the nerd forums online, Misfit nerd forums, a new discovery has been had that it seems that Rockwell, the singer Rockwell, like somebody's watching me. He and I'll send it to you afterwards. He stole the Christ the Conqueror sword and put it on one of his singles from 1992. And someone just randomly was like, first, because here's what's crazy about this. The song predates Christ the Conqueror, right? So everybody's thinking Jerry and Doyle stole the fucking Christ the Conqueror sword from Rockwell, the singer. That is the funniest fucking thing in the world. But it was shout out to Russell Casualty, TV Casualty, Rusty Murdergram, figured out that it was a Korean like import single from 1992 version of the song. So it actually was post Christ the Conqueror,
right?
Which lends everybody to realize that someone in Korea or something took the sword with the K, Christ the Conqueror, from Jerry and Doyle, whatever, their cyclopean, whatever, and incorporated it into the art for a Rockwell single from 1992 in Korea. I'm paraphrasing this off the top of my head. I might have some of the details wrong, but that is, I will show you I'll send it to you. It is absolutely hilarious.
That is awesome.
That's awesome, right?
Awesome.
And I totally cut you off. You were talking about being in your room. The surfboard is there. You're showing, you have the whole cathedral. Everybody sees your collection. There's a chest lined with felt or something.
It was like a Walmart, basic Foot Locker, but it had like the fancy brass trim, so it kind of looked like a treasure chest.
Right.
So in the lid, I've got 2 rows, and they just happen to be 14 inches wide. So I've got 2 rows of 7 inches across the lid, and then all my 12-inch records, all the different colored vinyl with like the colored vinyl in front of the sleeve and inside the plastic sleeve, all on display in the middle and across the bottom there.
Right.
And so that was the treasure chest. Obviously the rarer stuff was like in the middle, of prominence, and then things kind of fanned out to the side. And it was all legitimate original stuff, because I used to display my bootleg stuff on a separate shelf, and then eventually at one point I got so sick of the bootleg scene that I sold everything I had for like $700, and I stopped buying the bootlegs
because at the end of the day, it's one thing. I mean, yes, they look cool and they have cool color. I like the bootleg stuff. I like it because I can afford to own things that resemble these awesome things. I don't care about owning the real deal. I personally don't, but I understand why people do. In any case, there is definitely the bootlegs make sense for certain people who don't have especially in today's day, you don't have thousands and thousands of dollars to spend on the original stuff. However, what is incredibly frustrating with the bootlegs is that it's just the same old shit pressed over and over and over.
That's what I'm tired of.
And not only that, the quality is terrible.
Yeah.
And it's just it's like kind of like, it's one thing, it's like, I really like that bullet art. I really want to have a replica of that bullet art displayed, like I have the record, but I can't afford to fiscally afford to spend this money. Yeah. I don't mind paying $7.99 for this single at Generation Records or whatever.
Yeah.
It's another thing when it's like, the Misfits, the complete recording sessions, and it's just the same old shit that you already have digitally.
Yep.
And it's it's limited edition, but it's like $35.99.
Yeah.
What's the point? Like,
Right.
why?
Right. There were
know?
some bootlegs that, looking back, I kind of wish I had kept. The first bootlegs that Steve and I ever got was Ghoul's Gold. We got it.
The ghouls.
No, Ghoul's Gold.
Oh, that's what it was called.
It was Cough, Cool, and She.
Yeah.
On one side, and then the flip side was Ghoul's Night Out, Last Caress. So we had never heard the Cough Cool versions of Cough Cool and She, and we hadn't heard the studio version of Last Caress. We'd only heard Metallica's cover. So we bought there happened to be 2 copies at Record Convergence, and we raced back to my house. He had just started driving. I didn't have my license yet. We raced back to the house. Steve still has his Ghoul's Gold. You son of a bitch. You sold the skateboards, but you kept the Ghoul's Gold. You bastard. I love that guy. And we brought him back, and we lost our fucking minds listening to that. Like, the keyboards kick in, and these streets we walk, like, what the fuck is this? This is awesome. We played it over and over and over again. It was fucking amazing. So I kind of wish I had that one, because that was just my first foray into a much bigger world. But looking back, like Bobby's Live 79, A Perfect Crime.
Right.
That was before the Metallica cover.
Well, I mean, that's like, you want to know something? That is the Bobby's Perfect Crime is a service to all of the fans.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only reason, that's the only way that we have recordings from that very small, that time of the band. Like, you literally have those versions. The whole show exists somewhere. Well, maybe not anymore, but actually maybe it does. Depends on who you talk to.
Yeah.
But in that kind of way, but it's providing something that's rare.
Mm-hmm.
If it's just the same old shit that's been pressed up over again. But now you're talking about something else, and we've talked about this on the show, like a bootleg that provides a service. By the way, when I was talking about the Ghouls, I was referring to the Cough Cool version, where they're not even called the Misfits, they're called the Ghouls on the label. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
And the source of those is one of controversy, I would say. But that's not for show. That's not for show consumption, but that is one source of controversy for sure. But what's fascinating, you talk about, first thing you heard was Legacy, and we go through this all the time, where we go through the chronology of someone who hears it as this stuff disseminates, as you were talking about how much Return to the Fly means to you because of how rare it was, and you've told me how you heard In the Doorway and it melted your fucking brain.
Yep.
Like, that was like truly the lost relic.
Didn't even know it was out there.
Right. Didn't even know it was out there, because, and I guess apparently it was never, there's no whole take of In the Doorway. It's 2 takes that have been composited together. Shout out to Robbie Bloodshed, who turned me on to that fact. I did not know that. But it's just interesting how it's like, oh, I need to hear Last Caress. The only way I'm going to hear it, I don't have a copy of Beware.
Right.
I don't have, and that's the only way you're going to hear it. Like, that's at that time. Unless you are friends with someone who has the runoff tape from the Static Age sessions. And,
Yep.
Depending on how close you are to Jersey.
Yeah. One of the other ones I think I wish I had kept at least one of the copies of, because I had multiple copies on different colors, was A Walk Among the Dead, that had the Astro Zombies with the like the false start.
Right.
Yeah. Like, what's the story behind that? Like, what is that actually from? Is that, what session is that? Like, I honestly don't know, but I do know this. There is, at the end of Astro Zombies, there's more to the song. At the very end, there's like this little extra lyric that he sings at the end of the song. Like, like he's singing. There are some lost lyrics there, and I don't know what they are. But that was a weird time, because there's a lot of overlap. They start with the MSP sessions with Bobby. That eventually turns into they eventually re-record some of those songs, right? And then they do even more versions of those songs. Then they're going to do the Plan 9 version. Then that gets remixed by Christie of the Flesh Eaters. I mean, it gets very sort of
convoluted. So I'd imagine that, that's where that Astro Zombies is Newfoundland or
Right.
some, one of those sessions. I'm not too brushed up on that per se.
Yeah.
But yeah. So you got where were we? Where were we in this?
Oh, we're talking about the bootlegs. Bootlegs.
Yeah,
I wish I
bootlegs. What about
the collection, the shrine, the cathedral?
Right, the shrine, the cathedral, and eventually get to a place where you can't even store it anymore.
It's gotten so, it's become such a juggernaut that I can't even contain it anymore. I don't have it's like my Mad Max collection is now. Like, where do you put all this stuff? Well, it's sitting in storage because what else am I going to do with it?
Runner Dial Zero says, I think there were 2 whole takes of In the Doorway, but they combined them for the version of the 1997 CD. Or do you know something I don't? It's not on Misfits Central, right? Maybe I have it wrong. Maybe there's 2 whole takes. It was my understanding that there was 2 half takes, or that they did not have a complete. Each take is not complete. When I spoke to Frank said that they might have just ran through it. The reason why it was In the Doorway is an afterthought for Static Age. It is not meant to be. It was never really meant for anything. And if you notice, 3 of those songs remained unmixed on Static Age. Which ones are they? She, In the Doorway, and I think it's Spinal Remains. And the other 14 would have been for the intended Static Age album. Why those other songs remained unmixed? Because they're kind of like that. We'll save those for something else. This is what our album is going to be. These 14 songs. And what's interesting too is She is a redid version of a song that they had already recorded. Spinal Remains is a repurposed song of Feline Nursery that they did on the spot, and In the Doorway is an afterthought. And that's why those 3 remained unmixed, as opposed to the 14 that are intended for release.
Interesting point about songs like Feline Nursery and Harpies in the Night and West End Avenue is I remember Jerry telling me that Glenn was very influenced by Al Suicide and the band Suicide, who was big in the New York scene at that time. And they played that sort of jazzy keyboard. So that's kind of what Glenn was emulating with the whole Cough Cool era stuff.
When I first met you and we were talking and I asked you about these old songs, you did something that blew my fucking hair back. You said, when I was staying at Jerry's house in 1994, I asked Jerry about West End Avenue, or I asked him, Jerry was making pancakes. And he started doing the thing without, I don't think you asked him about it. I think he just started, you said, right? Didn't you say he just started doing it?
Yeah.
And you said, what is that? You go, oh, that's an old Misfits song, West End Avenue. And he was going, you were saying, this is how okay, this is my memory, because like I said, and I did this when I visited Manny Martinez and I listened to the fucking tape. So it's burned in my fucking brain. And I remember what you did. That was also burned in my brain.
Right.
You went West End Avenue, West End Avenue. That's what you did. And that's your memory of how Jerry was remembering something that they had never fucking played in all those years. So that is like a fucking carbon copy of a memory of a memory of a memory of a memory.
Yep.
West End. When really it's like do 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 West End Avenue, West End Avenue, West End Avenue, do 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 do. But it was close. I mean, it was pretty close. He was going West End, and the other one is Harpies in the Night. Sing like harpies in the night, in the night. Stevie Lynn from Kudat and Boojang sang it like that to me. But then I heard something that is, I guess, supposed to be Drive Me, maybe. But it sounds like he's saying Harpies in the Night when I heard it. He's saying, I'll shake my guts out for you. And then, da-na-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na, and now you got his harpies in the night. Something like that. but it doesn't line up with what Stevie Lynn's saying.
Yeah,
There's
my memory
sorry,
of Jerry, making pancakes and kind of coming over, and there was like kind of like a half wall that kind of separated the kitchen from the dining room, like with an opening that you could walk through. And as we were talking about it, he kind of did his fingers like on a keyboard on the half wall, and he was like, yeah, it was like West End Avenue, like the kind of thing. And I was just like, what? Like, oh my God. Wow. And yeah, so he was, I don't know how the conversation started, but we talked about a lot of like the early stuff, right. From back then, right. The whole Al suicide thing. But I wish this stuff could see the light of day.
Me too.
I really do. That would.
Me too.
No matter how bad it is, it would be fucking awesome.
It's so fascinating because it just informs the band, and you see why certain songs got like left off and other ones continued on. And and what's interesting is that like Frank only plays guitar in a couple of songs, so songs like Comeback doesn't have any guitar, and Hybrid, I don't even think Hybrid Moments has guitar. I think it's just piano, drums, and bass. And it's just, I don't know, man. It really is. It's fascinating to see how when they added a guitar, it just sort of changed everything.
Yeah.
They should have released it in 2017. Yeah. 40th anniversary. Totally could have happened. Shame that it did not happen. Shame.
Wow.
Shame.
That would have been incredible.
It's 3 hours now. Let's put a pin in it because this is, I think Tank wants to break the record. Probably could. We haven't even started. By the way, we've talked for 3 hours. We have danced around the topic. We have not even entered the time of the Misfits 95 yet. We have not even opened the door. We haven't even spoken about Michael Graves. We haven't talked about Peter Steele. We haven't talked about what's his face from The Damned. We haven't talked about Glenn Danzig and going to see him at his hotel. There's so much.
Speaking of what's his face from The Damned,
at
the shop at Pro Edge, where it was somewhere on a wall, and I'm picturing it like on a door or by a door, like a steel door that kind of separated from one. Dave Vanian's phone number was just like written random on because Jerry must have been like in between running.
Poor Dave
got on the phone. The Dave, so anybody who walked in, be like, oh, I think I'll give Dave a call, see what he's up to. Just random.
I just could imagine like every week or every couple days, Dave Vanian's telly rings and it's Jerry. Hey, Dave. Hey.
Yeah.
And Dave's like, oh, all right.
Dave is another very quiet fellow. I had the privilege of working with them on one of the Fiend Fest tours.
Right. In 2006, right?
2003.
2003
was the first Fiend Fest with the Damned.
Right.
2006 was the second one.
And and Captain Sensible mooned.
Yep.
Mooned the audience.
It's so funny. Yeah,
it's on video.
The last show of any tour is when all the shenanigans happen. It's just a known fact, and it can get pretty awesome. And there was some financial troubles. There were some issues with like getting everybody paid. We were promised this, but we had promoters falling down on us, and we weren't able to uphold some of the promises we made because money can't go out if it doesn't come in.
Right.
The comment that was made to me as the head tour manager when Captain Sensible went out on the stage and mooned everybody was like, see, that's what you get when you don't pay us. And I was like, that was great. Like, what's the problem here? Okay, that's cool. But it's
funny because Jerry in the video, like, you could tell like Jerry's like smiling and stuff, but I like again, this is just my own personal interpretation of what I saw. It just seems like on the inside Jerry's like so mad that like that Captain Sensible's doing this. He's like, oh, my hero, Captain Sensible. And then Captain Sensible turns around, just pulls down his trowel, just moons everybody, and Jerry's like, what, like sees it and is like, oh boy.
Captain Sensible. He was a good guy. I want to say he was harmless because he was just such a nice guy.
Yeah.
I had to. I can't say take. I mean, I wasn't his direct tour manager, but as the head tour manager, I was kind of everybody's go-to guy. But he was a vegetarian, so I always had to like make some kind of special arrangements to make sure he got fed. What he needed, and he thanked me for that. He
did. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, one of the coolest things about that MSG show was like it's like 40 years after the Misfits opened for the Damned, and now here are the Damned opening for the Misfits. I just thought it was kind of disrespectful that they didn't get the they should have had direct support. It shouldn't have been Rancid. It should have been I think it should have been the Damned. For whatever reason, it made no sense to me. I don't have no problem with Rancid or anything, but it's just like, well, that's a weird order. You don't have the Damned and then have Rancid. And it was Suicidal Tendencies too. I think they played direct. Maybe they played direct support. Or no, was that at the?
No, Suicidal was the
New Jersey show.
The Jersey show.
The Jersey show.
Yeah.
All right, listen. We have to. It's 3 hours and 10 minutes. I'm wrapping. I'm pulling the pin. I'm pulling the pin. Tank. I'm just going to do my Patreon thing. Hang on for 1 second, okay, guys. I want to thank everybody so much. When we did. Last Super Bowl, we got as many as 50 people watching. We did not hit 50 people this time. However, that was at the peak we reached 50 people. This entire time, we have had a minimum of 30 people watching this broadcast and as many as 42 people during the Super Bowl, which we didn't promote this show. We just started streaming out of nowhere. And so for that many people to have that kind of retention throughout 3 hours, I'm very satisfied with that. So I want to thank everybody for watching continuously. I want to thank Tank so much for his time. Tank is a new father again. Mazel tov to him and his wife Faye, who's a sweetheart, and they have a documentary, and we'll probably talk about that at some time in the future. But it's just very generous of Tank to give so much of his time. So we want to thank him truly for doing that. And Rue says, thank you. This was very cool. Looking forward to seeing you back here, blah, blah, blah. Walter White from New Zealand says, awesome show, guys. Cheers. Thanks, Jeff. Till next time, be safe and cough. Cool. We always do. And for those of you, please, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. Hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. I haven't said that once this entire broadcast. I really haven't. I've been very good about it. So I need you to do that now, and I'm going to play the Patreon video. I'm going to play us out with the Patreon video. Patreon is a great way to support this channel. We've got lots of cool content on the Patreon. You want to know more about the Patreon? I'll tell you more about the Patreon. Tank, I'll see you in 2 minutes and 33 seconds. We say peace and hair grease and...
Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jeff. So I've decided to make a Patreon. What is Patreon? I don't know how to define a Patreon. Let me look it up. Patreon is a membership platform that makes it very easy for creators to get paid for the things that they're already creating. I want to do it full time. I want this to be my full-time job. In my efforts to make that happen, I've set up this platform. Is it going to work? Is it going to be successful? I don't know, but I would rather try and crash and burn than not try at all. The goal is to create enough passive revenue so that I can continue to do this full-time, uninterrupted. Why? Because I love to do this. I love creating content. I love making videos. I love shooting films. I love doing podcasts. In case you couldn't tell, I love to talk, and I never shut the fuck up. So right now, I've kept the Patreon incredibly simple. There's 2 tiers, and that may change in the future. The Murdergram is a simple way to extend support for all of the hours and hours of free content on the channel for nothing more than $1. 38 cents goes to Patreon. What's $1.38, eh? It's less than a cup of coffee, but it's a great way that you can show support for very little effort. When you divide that $1.38 by the hours and hours and hours of time spent listening to this endless drivel of content, the dollar cost average works out. Next up is the YouTube casualty for $6.66. The YouTube casualty is loaded to the gills. Enjoy the archive ad-free, as well as ad-free early access to special docu-style podcast videos, music reaction commentaries, and the like, a month before they drop on YouTube, loaded with ads, I might add. You're also going to get exclusive content and behind-the-scenes content that is not available on YouTube or anywhere else. So you get to peek behind the veil. And believe me, there's a couple of choice pieces. Most of all, more than anything, whether you join the Patreon or not, I just want to thank each and every one of you that comes to the channel, that watches all the shows, that leaves comments, that participates, that subscribes. That's really the most important thing. This is just trying to find a way to earn a living as an artist. And with that, thank you for my TED Talk. Join the Patreon, because we need you!
66 cents.